Welcome to the very first meeting of this council. Congratulations everybody for being here, both those returned and those who are new to this council. Very, very welcome. We'd like to acknowledge the land we meet on today. It's traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Now also read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. Do you have any declarations by members of a conflict of interest? No, that being the case, we'll move on. We do have a report later in the meeting about the Intelligent Communities Forum win. Normally we acknowledge our trophies at the start of meetings. We didn't get a trophy for being in the top 21, but I'm sure if you've read the report, and those of you know about our ICF rankings, it's a very substantial achievement. So the staff have played a great role under Kate's guidance in doing that, and Chris and his team put the application in, and through the process that we've supported throughout the year, and Chris's diligence in getting done, with Joseph being one of the 21 most intelligent communities in the world, which I think is pretty cool. So give Chris a round of applause. Thank you. I know the message might run a story on it one day. Now on leave we have Neil. Apologies, we have Councillor Brute. Confirmation of minutes. Have someone confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council the 23rd of October 2018 be taken and read as a true record. Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it? Councillor Harris. Sorry, did you have your hand up first and I just missed that?
I don't mind.
I don't mind, I respect that. Occasionally, I've moved them, but I don't need to say anything. Thank you.
Any further debate on that item? That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? This carried. It's unanimous. The Mayor's report is there for you, pages 1 and 2. And someone had to move it to current form. Councillor Barnett, would you speak to it?
Yes, I'd like to move, and in so doing, congratulate Mayor O'Loughlin on being elected unopposed at the Australian Local Government Association Annual General Meeting to serve as second, and it says in final, turn to November 26. We're quite happy to bask and reflect the glory of your term, but doing a very good job, I understand.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you, Councillor. Do I have a second? Councillor?
I'd like to start with a question, if possible.
Yes, sir.
In the meetings, and only brief question I have is second to last dot point meeting with CMB, commercial motor vehicles. I imagine that is. Just briefly, not the whole meeting, but roughly was about, particularly because we've got a few empty car yards on the main road now with Jeep and others, and I just wondered if that meeting was maybe something about moving to Main North Road to do CMB.
CMB own the Jeep site, so we wanted to catch up with them to make sure they were aware of its planning potential, and we wanted to ask them what they were going to do with it next. So that was the purpose of the meeting.
Okay, that's okay. And you would have told them that tree is sacred that's on the site?
We didn't actually, but I think it's listed in the development plan, getting a nod from the director. So
okay, apart from that, I second it.
Thank you. Any further debate?
Not apart from that.
There being none, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6, elected member reports and briefings. Are there any? Right, there being the case, petitions nil, deputations we have 2. So I now call upon Mr. Peter Kapiris to come forward and take one of these 2 chairs here. Thank you. And for the purposes of the minutes, if you're able to state your name and address.
Sure. Peter Kapiris. And it has changed to 37A West Street, Brompton.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes, so let's start.
So good evening, everyone. As I said, I'm Peter Kapiris, and I'd like to start off by congratulating all councillors, both elected and re-elected, and also Mayor O'Loughlin. As a proud homeowner in Prospect, I still have my house at Prospect Terrace. I'm very privileged to be here tonight to represent Mzee Mazi, a business which is very excited to see the village heart grow and also transform. My purpose here tonight is to highlight the benefits for the City of Prospect, which will come from the footpath expansion on Azalea Street and a new outdoor dining permit for Mzee Mazi. I've read the council report, and I commend the authors for preparing a very transparent report which addresses the issues and assesses the merits of the proposal. When I talk about the proposal, I mean collectively both the proceeding with the footpath expansion, which I believe has already been approved or endorsed by council, but also approving the outdoor dining permit. So the proposal I'm talking about is one. And also with extensive consultation, which is on that one. For me, what are the benefits of the proposal? The first one is that the footpath expansion and the outdoor dining permit is directly in line with a number of the City of Prospect's strategic directions, most notably the increase of nighttime foot traffic after 5 in the village heart. This development would certainly make Azalea Street more attractive, as it will have more light, more vibrancy, more colour. If we turn our minds to what Rose Street looked like before the development, it was fairly ordinary. Now with all the colour, all the vibrancy, it's certainly a destination, a place where people want to go, both in Prospect and also coming from outside of Prospect. Secondly, the proposal supports the Council's 2017 Developers Partnership Grant Program, which I believe is a program that allows residents and business owners here to pursue projects which deliver improved outdoor dining. The applicant, Mr. El Tahir and Mzee Mazi, want to be part of that program. They want to invest in the city. And in saying that, by proceeding with this proposal, council is not stepping into unknown territory. My understanding is that the Rose Street development with New Nordic was one of the first to be endorsed under that program. There have been concerns raised about the safety of the proposal, more so with the footpath extension, the 1.2 metre into the road. But as the reports are telling us, the safety concern is not there. Pedestrians, despite that the street will be narrower, Milner Street is a similar example where there is a narrow street, but it is in accordance with Australian standards. I note further there will be bollards that will provide to pedestrians and to diners. Acknowledge that residents are concerned with the proposal given noise levels or potential noise levels, car parking loss, and also potential behaviour if people are leaving late. And that's why I think it's very important that we look at a compromise. So initially the applicant put in a request for 25 seats. He's prepared to accept 20. He's prepared to listen to the experts. So the SONIS report talked about the ways that we can reduce noise level is by reducing the number of patrons, also putting a time frame, so 10:30 at night, and also signage. And there it's also very important that these are not going to be a bit of a set and forget. It's not just going to be a sign on a wall. It's not just going to be a one condition on a permit that's going to be locked away in a drawer. These will be actively enforced through the staff, through Andrew, noting that it would be a 12-month permit, so that if it's not being maintained, that he's at risk of losing that. He is a responsible and well-respected business owner, and he has to turn away diners because of the capacity. He reaches capacity nearly every night. Mzee Mazi made it in the top 10 suburban restaurants in Adelaide according to last week's advertiser, and has made it in the top 100 restaurants in South Australia. He's also featured in the Qantas magazine, and I've got a copy here if anyone wants to have a bit of a squeeze. So bringing the globe, I guess, to the heart of the city. All of this achievement born right here. He didn't come from another suburb. It was born right here in Adelaide, in the heart of Prospect. So I urge councillors and Mayor to assess the merits of this proposal when making a decision. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And in case we have some questions from elected members, are there any questions? Councillor Harris.
I have two. Since the last meeting, and it's gone on a few times, and I've seen the recommendation by the staff and that, but in the last meeting we had a couple of things went away to look at the possibility of other sort of methods of quietening the place down, lines at the end and that. So question one centres around since the last October, since about October, September, has any other suggestions come of any quietening down things? That was one. And the other one was looking at, back on Main North Road, the little house cum shop that's next door. Did we look at doing any sort of development in that area as opposed to down so things to make things quieter that we didn't have before, and looking at the front, have we any suggestions of changing anything at the front and the premises next door?
On Prospect Road, not Main North.
On Prospect Road.
So to answer the first question in relation to mechanisms, Mr. Papadakis is well aware of the SONIS report, and that the recommendation came out of that inserting or installing blinds are not an effective way to reduce noise levels. So he's very on board to take on the recommendations of the SONIS report, which talk about making sure that diners or outdoor dining ends at 10:30. And reducing the number of, so ideally he wanted 25 as part of the initial recommendation, if not more, but he's prepared to take on or to accept a lesser amount to 20 overall, which I believe is 8 on Prospect Road and a configuration of 12 on Azalea Street. In relation to the second question, has that been, I'm not sure if I covered that off.
Has there been any attempt to spread more people across the front of the property rather than around the corner?
So my understanding is that he'll be prepared to accept the 8 at the front, leaving a configuration of 12. Mr. Hannaford, is that? Am I able to?
No.
Illustration for?
No.
No. Okay. I hope that's there.
I think it's covered in the report fairly. Any other questions for the deputy? Well,
first of all, Peter, thanks for your presentation. I would like to ask, whilst anyone's within their rights to put forward someone else to make a deputation, why didn't Andrew think it was important for him to be here tonight?
Sure.
And bearing in mind he's probably cooking up Savlaki at the moment, but I would have thought that it might have resonated quite a lot more to have Andrew here.
Andrew is very invested in his shop, and he wants to see it as a success. We need to keep in mind that Andrew has brought the flavours of Greece to Australia, and so his understanding of how the council works is a little bit confronting. So I did ask him that if he wanted the opportunity to join me, or and my understanding is that cultural difference is maybe something that he will work on, and at this point in time it was not. He felt that it was probably better if I represented him through a deputation.
Thanks. Further questions? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. One of the conditions proposed in the motion report to council is about making sure that diners are aware to keep respect to neighbours and be quiet when they leave, and even out, I guess, dining. So my query is, how will the staff be trained, or how will they handle that situation? Because we have had some reports that that hasn't really happened satisfactorily.
My understanding is that before each night begins, Andrew has a bit of a huddle with his staff, and they just talk about the what he expects and you know, lessons learned. During those times, they will be educational in terms of letting them know that if they do see diners who are talking at a bit high level, to remind them about the sign, and also to remind them that it's a privilege to have the outdoor dining. A lot of the customers are regular, so that repetition will ensure, because they don't want to see the permit at risk through council complaints and so forth. So I do have faith that through education, the staff will be able to relay those instructions to ensure noise is kept to a minimum.
Further questions? There being none, thank you, Mr. Pearce, for your presentation. And I'll call forward the second deputy when you start coming forward on those two positions there. Thank you. For the purposes of the minutes, are you able to state your name and address?
Wendy Dawn Fusdale, 5 Zane Street, Prospect.
Thank you. Can we have 5 minutes?
Good. Okay, here I go again. When a person buys a house and makes it a home, they choose the environment based on their preferred living conditions and accept the surrounding environment. Whilst that environment changes as time moves on, one expects that the laws, the standards, the various levels of government, your council will protect you and your environment from unwelcome intrusions into the amenity of one's daily life. After all, doesn't the council represent the residents and ratepayers of the area to protect them against intrusions such as jet engine level noises from extraction flues, complexes, loud restaurant patrons, business owners who breach conditions of their permits and licences, antisocial behaviour outside your house, cars parked across your drive, but the remedies to these issues proffered by council are just rhetoric. We've been experiencing this pain for over 12 months now, and despite complaints being made, nothing has changed. And here we go once again, with recommendations in this report totally ignoring the majority of residents of Azalea Street who will be impacted on by this proposal. 2 rounds of consultation, 2 petitions show the majority of Azalea Street residents oppose this. Chris Hannaford verbally confirmed in September that there were 34 Azalea Street residents opposed. The latest consultation result still shows the majority against. Yet this has been ignored. Why did you bother to consult if you're going to ignore the outcome of that consultation? Placing an outdoor dining area in a residential street, close proximity to housing, does not take residents' interests into consideration at all. Feeble excuses have been given for not placing the majority of diners on Prospect Road. Strategic plan outcome to increase the footfall on Prospect Road by 100% year on year, exponential growth to increase the economic viability of the area. How sustainable is that? There is an oversaturation now with a lack of parking, particularly in spring and summer. And I've been informed by council staff that it's unlikely that parking solutions will be offered in the future due to the predicted level of debt. So patrons who drive to this restaurant at night, park, eat, drink, leave, do they spend any more money in surrounding businesses? Who gains from this? It is claimed that the restaurant is busy and they turn people away because there's not enough outdoor dining. The tenant knew the state of the outdoor dining when he leased the property. There's currently provision for 12 people, and you are narrowing a road to provide for another 8 people per sitting. Does that make sense? How is that cost effective? Does the footpath need upgrading even? The cost of this proposal has already increased from the initial amount quoted. What about the on-cost to council or the blowout? There's already been significant on-cost to council in somebody's determination to make this happen. This recommendation puts the interests of the restaurant owner, the business, above those of residents. The issues experienced by residents of Rose Street, who are further away from outdoor dining than some Azalea Street restaurants, are being ignored. The Mayor had contradicted our statement that outdoor dining in residential streets across Adelaide are not as close to housing as this proposal. He cited a myriad of similar examples in September to discount our concerns. None of his examples are comparable. Some are not even near housing. And Council has offered ineffectual solutions to the issues that will be created. Placing a sign asking patrons to be quiet as they leave will have little or no effect. And I'm sure training staff will probably have little or no effect. The ability for residents to ring the after-hours number to complain by the time a compliance officer attends, the problem may be gone. Will Council listen to complaints that are not or cannot be substantiated or witnessed by their compliance officer? The condition includes tables on Azalea Street, but with no stipulation of configuration. So can it be one long table of 12? That hasn't been identified in the recommendation. 10:30 restricted outdoor trading assumes no one goes to bed before then. What about children and elderly still being subjected to noise at that time? The SONIS report stated The only way to reduce noise was to restrict the number of patrons on Azalea Street, but this proposal increases the number. The review of the business use of the road policy to take into consideration where there is a direct residential interface is too damn late for Azalea Street people. In fact, the fact that you feel the need to review it proves there's a problem or the potential for problems. So why create the problem? My statement in September regarding the concerns of consumer and business services being disputed. On the 12th of January 2018 at the liquor licensing hearing for Anchovy Bandit, Vicky Brunello, the advocate for the Liquor Licensing Commissioner, voiced her concerns about the number of licensed premises within close proximity to each other along Prospect Road High Street, particularly in relation to the impact on residents. Nearly finished. At the time of making, At the time of making that statement, there were 6 attendees, including myself, and there was a review of that liquor licensing. I know, this is my summary. I know Council wants to view the bigger picture, the ultimate holistic goal of vibrant, economically sustainable council area, but there must be a balance where residents are considered, or we are irrelevant.
Thank you. Do the members have any questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Wendy, for your presentation. There have been some of the residents that were quite strong opponents before. I noted in their correspondence, it was only 1 or 2 residents in one place of abode for option 3 because they thought that was a compromise. Yes, so is there any compromise option for you yourself?
Well, it's not me I'm representing, it's the 34 people who didn't want this to happen and who didn't want a restaurant in their street. The idea was, and the proposal was put forward, that something be looked at on Prospect Road. So let's move the majority of the seats to there. We've already had problems, as I said, with a breach of liquor licence and noise just from a few people standing at the top of the street. And I witnessed that 3 Saturday nights ago at the Rounded the Bend. It was 11:30 at night and still happening. And I thought, okay, people yelling, screaming, drinking, standing and doing whatever. So I don't know what the compromise is. How do we make it better? Or how do you make that stop? I'm not sure because, you can't measure the compliance. You don't have the money to have a compliance officer, moving around the place on a Saturday and Friday and Thursday and Wednesday night now, all the time. And that's my concern, our concern.
When you drove around the corner the other Saturday night at 11:30 and witnessed what you saw, did you report that?
No, I didn't. Because if we reported, if I'd gone home and rung Council's compliance officer, one, that's my rates, and whilst there was noise, I'll put my double glazing in now to alleviate the problem that I've had ever since, the last year. But also, if I took a photo of that or should show evidence. When we had a car parked across our drive, we took a photo, sent it into Council. We were told that can't be used because we took it. The compliance officer would have to take that photo. So they wouldn't do anything about that car, but pinged us for overhanging growth, which was a really nice thing to do.
Further questions? There being none, thank you very much.
Right, okay.
Questions on notice, your questions with notice. There's only questions without notice before the item. Can I just have a show of hands? How many people have got a question without notice? Just one, I'll take the one and we'll keep going. Question?
Pretty random and unrelated. I just a resident concern. I was just wondering our stance on star for signage. I noticed another one going up at St Helens Park after much debate over the last year, and my understanding they were all going to be removed, but this one had reappeared.
So the question is,
what is our stance on using temporary signage, considering that I suppose a business or whatever would have to go through a development application put signage on the street.
Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you. We have a motion that you put forward on the 25th of September to look at a signs policy, and that will be provided in December, and the signs policy will look at the appropriate use of star droppers and how to actually use it for temporary signage. But so that we don't have a policy at this point on use or not use of star droppers.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up question? December sounds good.
I'll leave it to December.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 4.1, which is the agenda item from item 13.1 on the 25th September 2018. You'll notice, members, that the recommendation that has come with this report that's come back to us, we did ask the unit to get some more information. The recommendation is different, not vastly, but different in every aspect slightly. Just to make life simpler, I recommend that we ask the mover to withdraw the previous and to seek a mover for the new motion. So is the mover happy to withdraw the previous motion, namely item 13.1 on the 25th of September?
I am.
Okay, now we don't need to withdraw it, thank you. It was leave of the meeting. So all those in favour of withdrawing that item, please raise your hands. Thank you. Withdrawn. And there's no more discussion on that item. We now have before us item 12.1. And as per our rules, we can elect this, or I can choose to start debate as if it's a new item. So in both terms, we have a new item. The adjournment does not resume at this point of last debate. We will start right from the start again, give everyone a chance to talk to this new item. We don't have an item yet. It's on the floor. Does somebody wish to move the item as presented in the papers at page 4? Councillor Larwood, wish to speak to us.
Yeah, I'd like to move it to get it on the floor because this has been a fairly vexing issue and a long process, so I'm very interested to hear what the previous elected member group and the new elected members have got to say about the process. I've got a couple of questions, if I may, through the chair.
Sure.
First question is, since the item came to us most recently in September, how many complaints have we received regarding noise and over-exuberance or anything else, disobedience with the liquor licensing laws and those kind of things like that?
CEO?
Through the chair, Councillor Larwood, we haven't actually received any actual complaints about behaviour or noise, and it's in the report. The Liquor Licensing Commissioner has, or the Commission itself, we've contacted them and they haven't received any complaints. Recently, we contacted them in the last day, the Liquor Licensing Commission, and they haven't received any complaints about Prospect Road in general, and they haven't also received any complaints about Mezamazi, about noise or licensing issues.
Second question related to that, I'm not sure whether you can answer this because it's more asking for an opinion, but do we feel like our process for residents raising a concern such as been described tonight is adequate and workable?
Through the chair, we do have a process, and if we do get a number of complaints, we will actually ramp up our enforcement regime. So at the moment, we, as Wendy is saying, we wouldn't necessarily get a picture from our compliance officer of a noisy situation, but if we get a number of complaints, we can actually ramp that up and also have that enforcement regime in place. But at the moment, we can't justify the additional expenditure of an officer on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night throughout summer, and we've estimated that cost at around $9,000. But certainly if there are complaints from the community and they're validated, we can actually do that.
Two more brief questions. 4.D says outdoor seating is maintained as approved. There was a question regarding whether seats which were down Azalea Street could be pushed together to create a long feasting table kind of scenario, if you like. Does that point D suggest that that isn't approved and that they're single tables with 2 seats per table, which is what I think is in the report?
Through the chair, what we've actually not wanted to do is be too directive on outdoor dining and just say you can only have tables of 2 people because we've had a chat with the business owner there and he says that's unpractical. But what we've particularly left in there is that it is more flexible and we can actually approve a seating pattern within the outdoor dining permit. So we haven't specified it here, but that can be done internally when we issue the permit. So we could actually specify, if we wanted to, not to have a table of 12, if that was the view of council.
Thank you. Last question. Mizmazi Restaurant ceases outdoor seating at 10:30. Does that mean that people will be ushered inside at 10:30, or does that mean the last meal will be served to outdoor dining patrons at that time?
Yep. Through the chair, what we would ask the owner is that all outdoor dining ceases at 10:30, so there'll be minimal outdoor noise generation from 10:30 as a result of outdoor dining, because there won't be any outdoor dining. So 10:30 is the cut-off.
So just to clarify Mr. question, so if there are people who still want to have another something or other, they'll be moved.
They'll be asked to move inside. We've talked that through with Tahir and the business owner Andrew. They both understand the need to do that. They were wanting to go to 11:30, and we looked at the SONUS report, and that was quite clear. Time restrictions are important, and so we put a time restriction on there, and that particularly equates to Friday and Saturday nights. So 10:30 across the board.
Does that extend to people who may be dining inside and who may choose to smoke, taking a drink with them and going outside and having a cigarette and drinking whilst having a cigarette?
Good question. That is a difficult one to answer, but people will be able to take a cigarette outside and smoke. But again, I think we've actually had a good relationship. Well, they shouldn't. All right, okay, can be wrong there. But what we'll be seeking to do is working with the property owner there, and he will be working with his staff so that they know that people have to respect the people in Azalea Street and not make noise when they leave.
So just a bit of a clarification, a precise answer. I recall us passing to prohibit smoking in outdoor dining on Prospect Road. But technically, on Azalea Street it's not prohibited. And so, because we did the matter around corners down, this council would choose to clarify that. As far as I'm aware, I recall, outdoor dining on Prospect Road you can't smoke.
Okay.
Now, it's a bit tenuous, I'd like you to comment. If outdoor dining is ceased, there is no outdoor dining.
There's no way.
So can they smoke on Prospect Road?
They could smoke in front of Challenge Hi-Fi. They could smoke not in an outdoor dining area.
Okay, that's it. Move to speak to the motion as well as the questions.
Oh, well, thank you, yeah. I haven't decided which way I'm going to vote yet because I'd like to hear the thoughts around the table. But going back over the history of this a little bit, I think that the council has now gone through several iterations of consultation. I think they've probably got closer to getting it right now. It's a pity that it didn't happen earlier. We've investigated the potential to reduce the noise through engineering solutions. I'm clearly not an acoustics engineer. It's surprising that nothing could be found to help, but I trust the report because it's carried out by a reputable company. We've also gone back to the drawing board and looked at tweaks and adjustments to the previous proposals to arrive at something which I think most people would see as a compromise. I would like to say I really wish that one of the owners of the restaurant had come tonight, because the benefit of that, and I understand that people might not necessarily be comfortable being in this environment, but even as an observer, I think it would have been useful, because that way they would have really seen the concern around the table and the concern on behalf of the residents that we've got for this going the wrong way. I think we're doing everything we can to push it in the right direction, but nothing would have cut through better than the owner of the restaurant sitting here and hearing the discussions around the table and hearing the emotion and the importance that we're placing on compliance with these rules that we're putting in place. So I would like to note that it is disappointing that such a significant decision such as this wasn't enough to get them to come along even as an observer. Some of the points raised earlier about being in line with our strategic plan, I agree with those. The thing that concerns me the most, I guess, is the lack of real ability to police and monitor any of these conditions. I'm interested in what other people around the table think about that. I'm leaning towards supporting it at the moment, but that is my major concern is the compliance with the conditions that we're setting out, because the owner of the restaurant hasn't, by all accounts, hasn't even taken the hint since this came to council in September. That's all I want to say at the moment. Thank you.
Do we have a second? Councillor De Becker.
Yes, I would. Look, I appreciate Councillor Larwood's thoughts on the matter. It is a quite complex matter, but it came to the council originally in November 2017. It's been back and forth, and I think what we have to remember is this is an urban corridor zone, so which was implemented and encouraged by the state. We also have the Litter and Nuisance Act, which has been now given to local governments, police, without necessarily the funding to do it. So I think we have to be wary of the fact how much power we actually have in this realm. So this is an infrastructure project, and the good thing about the public-private partnership is that we're actually creating more of what we spent millions and millions of dollars along Prospect Road, undergrounding power lines, which has now gone up to the north to improve the amenity. And you've seen the investments and the businesses move into the area. So the idea about the public-private partnership was that the people who are benefiting from the infrastructure improvements are actually participating in that payment. Now, I agree that some of the previous motions that came to us, one for the say poor consultation, I think the intent was there, but it wasn't done correctly, and that's why it had to come back to us and it had to go out to residents again, and that's unfortunate because in most cases, just to the new councillors, this kind of thing doesn't come to council. This is dealt with often by staff. The reason it came to council in the first place because it wasn't properly managed and it needed to come from council. So I support this as an infrastructure project. There's a public-private partnership. We have to be careful of overreaching. So if we overreach and say, well, you can't have your tables and chairs that way and you can't do this and you can't do that, it is in an urban corridor zone. There is a 24/7 service station up the road. We have a cinema up the road. We've got Rose Street. So even though there's an uncomfortable balance between the residents and the village heart, what I heard from the first committee was an ability to compromise. I was actually going to move an amendment to the motion to remove the 12 months because why should they be victimised and all the other people don't have this 12 months? But they're willing to accept the reduced amount of tables. They're willing to accept the 12-month review period. They're willing to keep that communication open. And I didn't hear any willingness from the second deputy, even though collectively we've done a lot of work to try and get a compromise proposal. So I'd really like to hear what other people have to say, because ultimately we vote around the table. But at this stage I'm supportive, and I'm actually was really interested to hear the First Deputy and their willingness to compromise on the initial proposal.
Thank you. Go to speak. Councillor Rees.
Look, coming into this one tonight, I'm sitting 50-50. I'm not sure how I vote yet, so I want to listen to other members and what they say as well, thanks to the first two speakers. Although it says in our strategic plan that we want to facilitate a vibrant and active city, I'm fully supportive of that. My wife and I enjoy going to, as do the community members, going to Prospect Road and enjoying a meal out. But we also have to be mindful about noise levels and how we impact the residents around in this environment as well. So whilst I'm supportive of our vibrant and active city as part of our strategic plan, we need to be thinking about the impact on the residents as well, particularly when it comes to compliance. And I'm really big on the compliance one, because I am of the opinion that there is probably, if we do approve this, there is a limited space of things we can do in the space of compliance, and it gets quite difficult. Placing a sign is one thing, education is one thing, and I appreciate the comment from the First Deputy about the willingness to educate staff, but it's actually about, if things are going wrong, what can we do at a compliance level beyond just placing a sign and education? Also noise levels, impacting on noise levels. I was scared in the first initial report talking about 11:30 on weeknights. I mean, that's, to me, that's crazy. It's too late, and it will impact residents, particularly on weeknights. I feel too much. I'm interested to what the mover and seconder think before. I don't want to move amendments. I'm against sort of moving amendments without first giving the mover and seconder the opportunity to incorporate this into their motion. I'm more in the headspace at the moment of being supportive of the recommendation if we can reduce the weeknight time to 9:30 potentially, and keeping 10:30 for weekends is where my headspace is at the moment. I'm willing to hear what other people have to think, but I'm thinking on a weeknight, knowing what's happening in my street, supportive of the outdoor dining overall, but I think 10:30 is probably a stretch on weeknights. I think 9:30 is a better time, and Friday and Saturday nights 10:30, but obviously willing to hear what other people have to say.
Councillor, just before you resume the seat, from a process point of view, unless somebody else wishes to amend that, the mover and seconder have no ability to make that change in the way we run the debate.
Oh, okay, it's different from where I was previously, sorry.
Quite willing, if you wish to foreshadow an amendment, should they not be willing, I'll then ask the mover and seconder if they're willing to incorporate that change. If they're not willing, then you can choose whether you want to move the amendment or not.
Okay, well, I'll foreshadow the amendment of 9:30 for weeknights and 10:30 for Friday and Saturday night.
Sorry, Sunday night, just to be clear.
Sunday, actually, sorry, yeah, good point. Friday and Saturday, Sunday 9:30 as well, I beg your pardon.
Mover, are you happy to incorporate that change? Just a simple yes or no.
What if I can't? What if I don't have a simple yes or no answer?
Yeah, it's a no. And it becomes an amendment, you can debate it. That's how it works. So, Councillor Review, happy to move an amendment and test the floor with that?
Sorry, just...
What's it again? Sorry, I didn't.
9:30. Just through the chair.
Through the chair.
Okay, well, look, I'm taking forth some feedback. I'm happy to... So Thursday, beg your pardon, my iPad's just gone. Getting used to these, sorry. A second. Just bear with me 1 second.
Or if you're looking for it, Councillor, on the screen.
If we can get the times up, my iPad's just gone on me. Yep, the Thursday bit. Okay, so we'll go with, I'll move the amendment Sunday 9:30, Tuesday and Wednesday 9:30. It doesn't have Thursday in here for outdoor dining as far as I'm aware.
The purpose is to say Sunday to Wednesday at 9:30 and
yep.
Friday
and Saturday.
Thursday and Saturday 10:30, some of your suggestions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is slightly different to what you proposed before. I'll return to the mover, see if the mover's happy to incorporate that change.
I'd be happy to incorporate that.
Change. Yes or no, so I feel I can take it.
The reason I didn't say Thursday before, it wasn't actually listed on here.
Sorry, just to clarify, the second line, Jazz, is Thursday to Saturday.
Yep, that's fine.
Councillor Rick.
Yep, yes.
Secondly, you happy to incorporate?
No.
No. Okay, then returns to you, Councillor Rick, to move the amendment. Happy to move that. Okay, thank you. Do I have and you wish to speak to the amendment anymore?
Spoken, that's fine.
Do I have a seconder to the amendment?
Could I just ask a question?
Briefly.
What is the current situation at the moment? Look, there's 12 seating allowed at the moment, is that correct?
Yes.
And the closing time with that is what?
It's 10. Sorry, it's 10:30
Currently.
And sorry, just to clarify, that's been the case.
That's been the case for a very long time. It's been, when it was an African restaurant, etc.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Then I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor, would you like to speak to the amendment?
No, just that I think it's reducing, obviously there's problems and they're not going to go away if it's defeated. So I see this as being a bit of a compromise that early days in the week, it's an hour earlier than you're getting at the moment.
Thank you. Any further debate on the amendment?
That's a good question.
Brief question.
From a financial point of view, the parent may want to not go ahead with the outdoor extension if they make the same money straight into 10:30. Is there an ability for them to say no to this proposal?
Sorry, Director, no matter what we decide, can the proprietor decide to do nothing?
Through the chair, yes, the proprietor could decide not to go ahead with the footpath expansion and just keep it at the 12 seats that we've got now and continue to trade like that. So he might just say there's too many conditions and there's we're restricting his trade too much. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Further debate on the
Question. So if we move and endorse the amendment, then that becomes a motion and then we still talk on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That has been done for a while. Just want to clarify. If there's no further debate on the amendment, that concludes debate on the amendment. There is no summing up on the amendment. Now seek those all in favour of the amendment. Please raise your hand. All those against the amendment. Okay, the amendment is carried. Now becomes the motion. Is there any further debate on the motion? Harris.
Yes. It's terrible when you maybe vote for one thing and then vote against it again in a minute. I'm likely to, well, I supported it as it came, and when it comes up the end I still might support it. My concern comes is we've got the replies and answers back, the curtains and blinds and that don't stop any sort of noise or any chance of creating a thing. I actually disagree with that a bit, but I'm not some scientist, someone, so I'm not going to disagree with it. But in my heart, I think it can happen like that. My main concern comes when we went away in the September one and the people went back and talked about it, that out the front on Prospect Road, we never even got a comment from yourself tonight. I shouldn't say that to there, but from one of the speakers tonight or any correspondence to say, we looked at doing something on Prospect Road, we looked at the house next door, we looked at the front grounds, and we can't do anything, or we don't want to do anything. There's just not an answer, bang. And that to me was a bit disappointing. And I mean even an answer that said, am I going to be wrong, am I?
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but I read quite a significant answer to exactly that question. Sorry, Councillor.
Well, can I ask a question? What was that answer?
Yes. Director, is there an answer to that question?
Through the chair, there is an answer. In the business use of the road policy, there is a policy that we can say you use it or lose it. with the space outside an adjacent business. So there isn't a capacity for Mezza Muzzy in our policy to actually expand to outside Retro Vintic, or even further down to Rachel Sanderson's area if the footpath was wide enough. So that can actually happen in our policy, and it happens in Europe, and that's just generally how outdoor dining happens, and happens in Melbourne and other places. We pursued that policy direction quite vigorously with the owner of Retro Vintic. She didn't want it, but we also pursued it quite vigorously with Tahir and Andrew from the restaurant. They did not want to be serving out front of Retro Vintic. That was their clear position. And we're council, but we're not in a position to make people serve meals in a particular place. So if they clearly said that to us, and there were several of us in the meeting, we couldn't actually force them to do it. That would have been an alternative solution. We could have actually perhaps had 16 tables out the front there, or 16 seats, sorry. But that was not an option that the owner wanted to pursue. So, and we mentioned that in the report.
Yeah, that is on page 8 as well.
Okay, then.
It'd never be wrong, but
I accept that I didn't miss that. I missed that bit. Apart from that, then I'm not going to say anything else. Apart from the fact that you most probably want my answer and whatever, and I'm going to vote against it.
Any further speakers to the motion? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, having spoken to a lot of residents, spoken to the owner, and I just believe there are two pivotal things that still have not been answered for me, and that is that we, as we found out tonight, we have no policy on smoking on side street outdoor dining. We have no policy on side street outdoor dining close to a residential interface. And they're two pivotal things for me. So I think we're still half done here. We still have things that, I spoke to the owner of the property, was thought that he had the Challenge car park all worked out, but I read in the report now that that's not going ahead. There's a very big plus in this whole thing. I've just got questions about, do the proposed bollards meet standards to prevent vehicles crashing into diners? So is anybody able? Yes.
Bollards.
Through the chair, yes, it is proposed that they will be crash tested bollards for protection.
And we've had the one about the staff, how they're going to handle the condition about, well, whether it gets through or not. I still think that the staff should be trained and instructed in how to deal with the clients and remind them of, that they are very close to a residential area. With also, the other question I have, are the proposed seating is going to be fixed seating or is it going to be removable seating?
Through the chair, it's not proposed to be fixed seating. It's removable seating.
Yeah, so about the closest, apart from those two facts that we haven't got the particular policies, I did put my hand up the change to the timing, because I thought, well, at least that's something moving a bit closer to helping the residents. And I think it's a bit tough to say that, well, there weren't any official noise complaints and that. We've heard with the various petitions, we've heard in talking with the residents and that, it's pretty obvious that they've complained. So I think that was a bit tough. Anyway, and our dilemma is, despite the fact that we still haven't got those two policies, which I would like to have, for any of our proposals. This, you know, stop to think there are quite a few shops that could extend along most of our Prospect Road here and on either side, which are currently sort of aren't cafes or that, but there's quite a strong possibility they get closer and closer to our residential area. So I think we still, for me, there's still too many questions on this. Our problem is that if you commit to this, you commit to doing the extension, you commit to the costs, you commit, and there's no way I'm not going to pass this without having a $9,000 in the budget to deal with the compliance matters. So, and I still haven't got any commitment to my mind around the table, or that you know, that that's the way that we would be going. So I've got about 3 points at the moment where I'm not happy with this, and I'm not prepared to really support it other than option 3, which is it remains at 12 seats. There's no loss of car parks, there's no change to footpath, and there's no increase to the current seating.
Further debate. Just speaking from the chair, I'm not sure I get the opportunity to vote on this when he runs out to speak 11 hours or something. Anything's possible. But I guess that I'm troubled by this application and the debate to a certain extent. I've specifically asked the CEO to chase up whether there have been any complaints about this premise over time, given that that was part of the substantiation for the deputy, the first 2 deputations, and again tonight. It's a very serious matter to grant a licence, grant an outdoor dining permit, and then to hear about complaints, repeated complaints. Now, so I need to understand the veracity of those complaints. So I asked the CEO if she could be in contact with the Consumer and Business Affairs branch, with the licensing, to find out just what happened. So, CEO, what was the response when you asked if there had been any complaints about this premise?
Thank you, Mayor. So I did contact the relevant officer, and she advised me that there was no record of complaints or objections on this system.
So that to me, that's it. I guess I'm kind of happy and I'm kind of sad at the same time, because I'm happy there's no complaints registered. But I'm sad because it doesn't give me any decent reason to say no. For something that we've set up a specific policy to entertain, that we've set up a specific fund to co-fund. This is precisely what those 2 policies are meant to do. We've rezoned Prospect Road very carefully. Perhaps the first time not carefully enough, but other forces will work there, just redone it. And this site is able to be redeveloped. And Chalmers High is certainly redeveloped, and all of the careful constraints of our development plan, and that's well known throughout our city. So I think I'm not quite sure how we could say no. Then I turn my mind to the fact that they already have permission for 12 outdoor dining licences here that have a time restriction of 10:30 on them. That place has been licensed for a very, very long time, and those dining permits have been able to be exercised for a very, very long time, and yet there's been no complaints received about this premise, either from this owner or the previous proprietor. Sorry, I didn't say owner, from this proprietor or the previous proprietor. I know that Cafe Chana has had outdoor dining, licensed outdoor dining for many years in very close proximity to their side boundary, and probably closer to the residents than this proposal is. I could be wrong, I haven't got a tape measure out. Just over here, I've never heard a complaint from that. In fact, the house immediately behind Cafe Chana just spent a fortune over the last 3 or 4 years doing complete renovation. So clearly they're not troubled by Cafe Chana's operation. And I guess, so not only do I struggle to find a reason not to support this, but I can see that we've got the strictest conditions we've applied on any outdoor dining licence that I can recall being approved or considered in this council in my time here. It does remind me about the Cafe Komodo approval when we originally gave that, but they wanted an entertainment licence. We put a whole pile of conditions on there, very, very strict, and they've complied with them, and people love that place. It's been very successful, full compliance. They've never come back and asked for them to be changed. So I consider this would be another sort of benchmark to say these are the conditions you have to have if you want to be near a residence. And just finally, we can find all sorts of excuses to not approve something like this. But I'm struggling to see how a refusal would fit with our policy framework that we've sat around and discussed and approved here. And if we wish to change the rules about smoking, that is our problem. We can choose to do it. So that's my position in case you're in any doubt about where we're at. Do we have any further debate? If there's not, let's return to the mover, Councillor Larwood, if you wish to sum up.
Thank you. Great discussion. And just to highlight a couple of points around the table, Councillor Ripp talked about the fact that, in his opinion, there's limited things we can do to enforce compliance, and I appreciate that. Councillor Barnett raised a concern with a lack of policies around smoking, no smoking, outdoor dining down side streets, and I acknowledge those points. However, the two strongest points that I'd like to reiterate made by Councillor De Backer and the Mayor. So Councillor De Backer, not to quote correctly, but to paraphrase, Councillor De Backer said this is what we wanted and why we invested in Prospect Road. And the Mayor talked about the fact that we've set up a specific policy and have strategies in place to encourage this. So if we're going to go to that trouble, we have to back ourselves that we've made the right decision. So on that basis, I'm going to be supporting it.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? All those against?
Sorry, in favour.
That's okay. Sorry,
You do it again, sorry. Yeah.
Say it again, which I can do. Say it again for perfect parity. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Now, for those of you in the gallery, sorry, division?
Yes.
Division's been called. Take that vote again. All those in the negative, please stand up so we can record your names.
Alan Harris. Oh, you know me.
You're familiar to the start, I think, Councillor. And right,
You want to sit down?
those that are seated are taken to be in favour and the vote is still carried. Thank you. For those of you in the gallery around about this item tonight, that concludes discussion on this matter. You're welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting if you wish, but if you wish to go now do something else, that's perfectly understandable too. So, thank you for coming and thanks for the deputation tonight. Okay, reports for decision. We have a number of appointments tonight between the first council meeting. The first of those is item 14.1. The appointment of deputy mayor. So just ask whether there are any nominations for deputy mayor. Councillor Harris.
Yes, I'd like to start to nominate Councillor Larwood. And I know you haven't asked it there, but I'd like to nominate him for 12 months to start with.
Okay.
And if I need to explain that, because I really think
No, it's a simple question. Are there nominations?
okay, that's done.
On the platform. Are there any other nominations? Councillor De Backer.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Christina Barnett.
We'll get to the period later. Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Sorry, I should. Very tally. I know the answer to this, just for the sake of the recording. Councillor Larwood, you have to accept the nomination. Councillor Larwood, you have to accept the nomination.
Yes, soon I've been nominated. I will.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? There being none, I will now have a ballot for deputy mayor. And in previous occasions, we have afforded the two candidates an opportunity to speak. It's not a motion. The 5-minute rule does not apply. I'll seek leave of the meeting to allow a 2-minute speech from each of the candidates. All those in favour? All those against? Thus carried. And then we'll ask the two candidates to I'm assuming, just check, it's not normal that we debate candidates' presentations. No, thank you. So the two candidates like to address us, and in order of nomination, Councillor Larwood.
First of all, thank you to Councillor Harris for nominating Councillor Harris. I'm happy to accept the nomination. I've been on council now for a term. During that time, I've participated in quite a lot of committees and served in a broad capacity than just being an elected member. Further to that, I've driven quite a few initiatives which have a citywide bearing, not just a local bearing. Some of those have been the Bike Friendly City Initiative, the Be Active Sports and Wellness initiative, which is now a strong part of the fair. I've led the charge on the digital transformation process, and I've also been heavily involved in the Intelligent Communities program. I think that it's good to have a turnover of people in this role, and the role affords people the opportunity for professional development and to get a little bit more actively involved at a slightly different level, and it requires someone who has the ability to demonstrate leadership. I fulfil that role in my day job as a CEO, where I run a company with 30 people dealing with a range of stakeholders. I've got a contemporary mindset, and I still acknowledge that the success of our city is based around the work that's been done preserving history and heritage over years. So I think I'm well positioned and well placed to fulfil the role of Deputy Mayor for those reasons. I would also say that I received 37.5% of the votes for the West Ward, so I believe that was the second highest number of votes across the whole of the council areas in the most recent election. So make of that what you will. I consider it a bit of a mandate that the people of Prospect trust me and figure that I'm a reasonable representative of what their thoughts and wishes are. So for those reasons, I think I'd make a suitable candidate for the role. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, 51 seconds. Brilliant.
9 more seconds. And
Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thanks. I hadn't actually considered this, but I think seeing I've been nominated, why not? I didn't run before because obviously Councillor Mark Groot wanted the position, but just before I came, saw his email. Anyway, so I thought, oh, why not? I think either of us, job or any of our others. So I've been former mayor, I've been former deputy mayor. I think I pretty well know my way around the decision making, the different rules, how to run the council, and I just think it would be good perhaps to have a steady rudder just for our first term. It's only for 12 months. So thereafter, there are 3 other opportunities for other people, and I would certainly encourage that. I think perhaps it would be, perhaps behoove us to have a male mayor. If we had a female deputy mayor, I think that might give some support to encourage us. I think we've always held our head up high about to try and support female participation, and maybe it's a better look if we have a bit of a balance, at least to start our term. And so I would certainly be encouraging others at the end of the 12 months term, and I would certainly be happy to be a mentor to anybody as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and 1 minute 49 seconds. So hard to split the difference there. Thank you, elected members. You just mark your ballot paper deputy mayor at the top and make a selection. And you need to mark one box. Whatever mark you prefer. Mark or print, tick, cross one. And just select something. Person.
Mark something up the top.
Deputy mayor, we did that tonight. Just for the sake of staff, I'll make sure I've got them right. Thanks.
No, so let's go with the phone.
So to see, I just conferring, there is a stipulated unavoidable increase in allowance for the deputy mayor position, and allow the candidates to speak as I think is only fair for a position like this. But we're just debating whether the candidate should be able to vote in an issue where they stand to gain. I think for the sake of purity and white, transparent cleanliness, that I'll rule that we should not. So I'll just declare that round void and ask the two candidates to leave, and having a direct pecuniary conflict of interest in the outcome of this matter. We know who, well, I suspect we know who you vote for, and I suspect it won't change the outcome. I could be wrong. Just to protect your interests and ours, we should do that ballot. I apologise for that. We'll just prepare some more ballot papers and we'll send that one.
Didn't we put our names on?
No.
Oh, we didn't put our names on.
Put the roll up. It wasn't clear.
So ask the two candidates to leave the room.
Nominated, do we have to leave too?
We had when it was Gaian.
Yes.
Could their presence or not presence change our vote? So does Mayor get a vote as well on this one? Does it?
We're waiting for that to count, which won't, I don't think, take terribly long. The next item is on the timing of ordinary council meetings and council information and training sessions. Now, I know there's a couple of people who want to comment on that. Just by show of hands, how many people wish to discuss that item, just considering suspending meeting procedures?
I think we need to get them back in before we do that.
I know they both do. And you do, Scott, yeah, okay, that's right. Anyway, when we get to the next item, I'll seek your leave to suspend meeting procedures, to have a bit more of a free-flowing discussion around meeting times and purposes.
I would like to discuss, make a comment as well, but I don't think.
Rather than me, just do it through formal debate. Okay, so the result is Councillor Larwood is elected as the Deputy Mayor. You could just call the two back in. Someone can
I'll go for one. Don't get my steps up today. I'm trying to get 10,000 up again.
Added about 20.
He'll be doing plenty as it goes on.
Oh, 50 more than that.
You found one more?
Oh, well, we called out and Christina called out. I think he's coming. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's doing extra steps.
Okay, thanks for both your nominations. Apologies for the double count. The result is Councillor Larwood is our new Deputy Mayor for the next, well, sorry, the new Deputy Mayor is a successful nomination. Now move to the recommendation, which has a sponsor put in a duration. The duration here has been 12 months, but for as long as I can remember, except when we've chosen to do something else. So we can choose any period we like. I think the simplest way to do it is to take a motion on the floor and get it moved. Councillor Rick.
I move, as we stated before, that it's 12 months, Councillor Larwood.
Thank you. Having moved it to speak with any further, do I have a second? Councillor Tobacco, do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, just to congratulate you on this position.
You need to stand up.
Yep, I think that will Marguerite be a great deputy mayor, but I think the 12-month period also allows others within the council to be able to access that role and be able to learn from that role. And some of us might take up Christina's offer as a mentor anyway.
Yes. Further debate on side. There being none, Councillor Kusini, you need to sum up. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Yes, it's carried unanimously.
So we change the date to 2008, 2009.
Item 14.2, timing of ordinary council meetings and council information and training sessions. Just shared as I indicated before, sorry, candidates, Deputy Mayor, you're out of the room, but I know at least one of you, probably two, wants to speak on this item. And there's such a number of parts to it. I think it'd be better if we suspended meeting procedures until 8:45, should we need it. So we're always in favour of that. Please raise your hand. Against, meeting procedures are thus suspended. There's been some email correspondence. I know some of you have CC'd others in on that related to the item around council information and training sessions. I've had a chat with the CEO today. I might just, if you wish to sum up your thinking around that item as a suggestion here where you think that's got to, and then we'll open up to the floor if you want to comment on that.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The executive met to discuss how we would present an opportunity for council to move forward over the next period, and clearly we are required to have a council meeting every month, so that's pretty straightforward. In terms of the workshop sessions that have been had, we did a little bit of research around whether the term workshop was really what could be applied. The intent really was that we have at least one meeting a month that we could discuss issues and debate items with you, and that you could have input in relation to the myriad of activities that are happening. And then a second evening where training opportunities or professional development opportunities could be. And I proposed that on the basis of some governance research I've been undertaking through the Institute of Company Directors, for instance, which recommends that boards should continually undertake training and development to ensure they are up to speed with a whole range of processes and opportunities. It may not have come across that way, and I certainly apologise to the council if it came across as being a training session purely in relation to the mandatory training and or just the Local Government Act. Of course, there's been a number of emails undertaken today, in particular in relation to that, and their staff are more than happy to take your direction in terms of how you would like those evenings identified within our schedule, and it's really up to the council to do that. We will fit in your mandatory training as required underneath the Local Government Act, and then I think there is an opportunity to still have some interesting speakers come to the council to share opportunities in their approaches in relation to strategic thinking or in relation to financial management, policy development, and we actually undertake that as part of programming normal Tuesday evenings. So I apologise if it's caused any confusion, but really I was trying to provide an opportunity where we're upskilling council as a whole. There are, of course, opportunities across the year to attend conferences and specific training opportunities as promoted by other providers. We are not engaging the LGA in any particular way to undertake training for you. Already we have had Melody Jones undertake one element of the training, and we can introduce other training providers to the council subject to needs. Clearly, if you are on particular committees and you want to receive some additional information about how to operate within that committee, whether it's the audit committee or the planning committee, we can actually undertake some specific engagement with you in terms of skill set should you desire or require that. So it wasn't intended to remove the opportunity for you to debate a whole range of things throughout the year. It was intended to focus the opportunity on good governance and to upskill council if it was required.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. So there's been a bit of correspondence. So does anybody wish to talk through where they see this at now, just for the concerns? And if we modify this on the way through, I'll take that, but let's just get some discussion going first.
Probably just the first comment of concern was the fact that the executive group got together and discussed, and the lack of consultation with the previous council. It would have been a prime opportunity with the previous council to give feedback on our training experiences and our learning experiences to form what's coming to the new council. And I just think it's a huge omission. That was my...
I'll take a comment. But, yeah. Okay. Any other? No.
I think what came to us in an email today was a good position. Maybe, I won't speak on behalf of anybody else, but maybe I misinterpreted what was presented to us as being quite directive and prescriptive because it looked like that. It was outlined in a way which looked like that's exactly what was going to happen, but I understand that was maybe not the intention. I like Councillor Barnett's point that she made in her email, which was talking about a needs analysis. Now, I know that takes a bit of time to do, but I think that would probably give a great outcome because various people are at different stages in their exposure to this space. Various people are interested in becoming more knowledgeable in certain areas because they might want to do that because they're on a committee of some sort, and that would be useful. I kind of like the flow of having a couple of workshops per month because it helps maintain the connectedness of what's going on. We understand that a lot of things that happen in council are operational, but I found over the last 4 years that by having the frequency that we had, which was about 2 meetings per month after my detailed analysis last night at 11:30, which may not be accurate but fairly close, it maintained a good flow of contact and a good flow of context for what we were doing. So I really enjoyed that part of the workshop program. That's really all I wanted to say.
Okay. Further comments?
I think as a new kid on the block, I appreciate all the training that's ahead of us. I don't know about you, Robin, but I've definitely taken up the opportunity. I can understand that for people who've done it for a few terms or many terms, may have exposure to the kind of training, but for newies like us, I think very welcome with the opportunity that's.
Yeah, I think there's, we want to be a continuous learning team, and so and there's certainly, others, that have different needs and all that I'm sure that we'll cater for as we have done previously, So I think it's just as Councillor Lyle said, and just seemed to come across well, it's from the CEO's performance review, therefore you do this, and I sort of thought, well, I don't think it's quite, perhaps the way it should have been. And I think we did somewhere, we've missed the opportunity to have a review. So I should see that would come in as part of the needs analysis and perhaps some review. And and so I think if we do that, I think that we'll be on track.
If I may, Mayor, I mean, there is certainly the intent was to undertake some review in terms of training and particularly opportunities coming up, because clearly there's a calendar of events and there will be a range of opportunities for that, and we certainly want to get some engagement with you in terms of the direction you take. Some councils have undertaken conference approach, some councils haven't. We will present that opportunity, and I want to engage with you in terms of where you see the opportunities existing.
Yeah, just briefly, the training apart from that compulsory part that we have to do, the test, that happens, so we have to do that. And then if people want other forms of training, I can see that. My concern comes with training and information session, unless I'm wrong, so that means no more workshops. Is that like planned, I mean.
No, there'd still be a planned schedule of workshops. It was a retitling issue in terms of trying to make it quite clear to the community that you're getting a lot of information on these nights, so the community understands it is a night where information is shared. If you don't like the terminology, completely understand that. We can revert to the original terminology that you had. The Act indicates that you can have workshops, information nights, training nights, etc. So it really was just to make it it was a term to be applied so the community understood these are nights where information is shared.
Well, to me, I haven't got a problem with what you want to call it, and that, if I'm right in my head, that when you said like once a month, which is a council meeting, I'm assuming you meant, where we have a chance to discuss it, I always disagree with that, because apart from the actual mover, the only chance you have of discussion is 5 minutes. So when I listen to you for 5 minutes and I've already spoken, I can never bring it up again. So unless you're the actual mover. So I see it as important, but I don't see it as working together or something. It's more like someone convincing someone to vote and go down that. Without then whatever it's called, and the you two sitting up there, I've always sort of said with the workshops we have, I always still believe in the workshops that we should have other business. And I'm not talking about the council meeting, but the workshops or whatever we're going to call it. So I still believe we should have that somehow. And this is what you said, and I wasn't 100% sure was what I was thinking is, so if we want to call it information, so we're going to talk about pulling up all those trees in Galway Avenue because we want to put bitumen down the road with golf courses in the middle. So to me to say an information thing would be someone from there or one of the directors saying we're going to pull up all those trees and we're going to put chessboards down the middle of the road, as to here's an idea we've got and what do you think? That's really, to me it doesn't matter what we call it. I haven't got a problem. If you feel it's better to call it something, but as long as it still works like a workshop.
The intent was not to change necessarily the scheduling and the range of information. I mean, we've got a range of information we want to work together on, collectively on, and not least of which is reviewing the strategic plan, of course. You need to do that within 2 years of taking office. And, you know, we have provided, there's been great discussion across the year in relation to a number of matters, George Woodall Reserve and the design of it and other elements like that. So clearly the staff will work with you in terms of an agenda. We did have a session a couple of years ago with you for the council to identify what items you would like presented at the workshops. And clearly there's still an opportunity for you to identify you'd like focus on a number of matters. The intent is not to shut down the discussion.
Right.
I think, yeah. So one of the great things, I think, the fact that we're using the Nailsworth Hall and the Prospect Tom Club is brilliant, because we should be doing that anyway. I think being out in our community, using our facilities, we get a bit of a perspective for what's going on. And I certainly, you know, think workshop is more blanket, because I think, I mean, it's a bit like the training we had the other day. It's not really training unless you're testing competency. And like for the online mandatory things, and not everyone likes online training, I get that, but at least early on, just for the mandatory stuff, if the new councillors and even for it to review, I'd be appreciative. The weekend workshop was good to just get out of the headspace and just focus on all that stuff. It was really useful. And I haven't seen anything come through yet about that kind of thing. And also the LGA, which we're not going to, doesn't have their online stuff available until 2019. And if you were on a job site, you'd have to have your white card before you know, and I think that kind of stuff's really important. So even if we had the resources available, we can swap up over Christmas holidays, but I'd hate to be getting to finances in October 2019 when I've had to sit on an audit committee, you know, but obviously I'd take the initiative to do that. There's one other thing, to pair it with the workshops. So if you've got something on, you know, water sensitive urban design, WASUD, you know, if there's a landscape conference or a training seminar, let us know at the same time. So what we learn here is relevant to the workshop. That's welcome.
Look, having heard about the exact intention of what these information sessions, workshops are going to be, I have the personal opinion that training is probably the wrong word, and it should be information sessions and workshops. I just don't think what you presented fits the definition necessarily of training. I just think, I don't know what other people think, but I think information sessions and workshops is what it should be to accurately represent exactly what it is you're looking to do. Myself, that's my opinion. But
yes, I'm drawn to the word workshops, not because I'm a sucker for tradition, but I always feel I'm not here for a picnic. So information to me sounds like a passive exercise. Come and listen. And training can be and participate, passive as well. But if it's a workshop, it sounds like I'm going to get in there and get my hands on something and do something useful. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm much more comfortable with that term than information session. So what it's called, I think, does matter. I'm not against information sessions per se, and sometimes that's all we have. It's just just listen up, here's where we're at, that's fine. The training, we have discussed this a bit, and elected members in the last term weren't very good at taking up training opportunities, and so we need to take a good hard look at ourselves and just think, if we want to be the best council for our community, and for our community to be the best it can be, do we know everything? And if we don't know everything, what are we going to do about fixing that gap in knowledge? Unless we've got a thirst to try and be the best, we won't seek it out. And I think what the CEO and the staff are trying to do is to say, we can bring some training to you. My point is, if you don't want to listen, if you don't want to be trained, it's not going to amount to anything. I think we've got to search for the gaps, identify them, and really want to, yearn for the extra information. And I think that's both in sessions that we can have on a Tuesday, but I think it's also external. And the last term had the lowest level of travel for conferences, just by one example, that I've seen in perhaps 20 years of this council. Now, we might think that's good to save money. Yes, but what did we lose because we weren't experiencing other ways of doing things in other jurisdictions that aren't our neighbours? What have we lost by not getting out of our comfort zone and going to a very specialist conference on affordable housing, or on urban design, or on water efficient design, or on open space design, the latest open space design that engages with kids? What have we lost because we haven't done that? And I think what we've lost can easily mount up to be far more than we've saved because we haven't gone through these exercises. So in my view, the issue about training is broader than what comes to us at the Tuesday night sessions. We've really got to want to get out there, and staff have provided opportunities for us to notify us of conferences, but not many of us have actually gone and done that. And I have to say, I have the privilege of being in a national role, which exposes me to the best speakers on topics in the nation. And I find it pretty inspiring, and I try and bring those things back here as best I can. But it'd be lovely if there's more people in the room that have listened to that, seen that, or seen it somewhere else and come back and spoken to us about that as well, and really take our community to the next level of what it can be. So I think there's a little bit more behind this topic than what the name of the session is, or restricting it to one Tuesday a month. I'm quite happy to work with the CEO to try and listen to where we're all at and try and reflect it in some kind of course. But I just want to say it's not always what happens in Prospect. Sometimes you need to get well beyond where we are here. And we used to do it collegiately. Half the council would go on a conference together. And that was interesting. But it meant that half the council had similar experiences and brought it back. It gave great strength to the initiatives gained at those conferences. And there's a lot to be said for that in terms of supporting a new idea. So I'm open-minded about training. We should do a lot more. And I'm not really fussed about where it is, but we should definitely do more.
I think there's most probably some personal value in actually having very specific study tours and study and information tours. Like, for example, I think what we did for our new sort of library and civic centre, I think that was quite valuable. So I don't think we should just be simply looking at conferences. To me, sometimes 3 days and all the cost and expense to go interstate, and we might have one workshop or one speaker that has actually resonated. So I don't think conferences per se are necessarily the way to go. So I think we could be looking at other, methods of information training.
Yeah, just for the new members' benefit, we looked at, I think, up to 16 libraries, mostly here, but also in Melbourne, and valued. It made us the experts in libraries in the state, hands down, in terms of design. Previously, some years ago, Councillor Barnett and Harris, I remember we went to state looking at apartment buildings on main roads. And I don't think that settled anyone's nerves. It was invaluable to look at built form, bulk and scale issues because they didn't exist here. And that was a very worthwhile trip too. Both of those were almost all of council. Okay, any other comments on this motion? We've heard a bit about changing the nomenclature to perhaps workshops and training sessions or something like that.
Information and workshop sessions. Doesn't really.
Information and workshop sessions.
Yeah.
I just hesitate. There was a bit of unrest out there. Is anybody suggesting any other changes to what's proposed? On location, timing, any of those things? Alan.
So, are we still out or are we? We're still out. So we're basically talking about the recommendation on 22, page 22.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, down the one at the bus tour, it's not like the Beatles bus tour. We don't go on a colourful bus. But 4th of December, which has to be a Tuesday, the day after Eureka, and commencing at 6:30. It's a great tour, and we head off, and it gets pitch black, and apart from the Scout Hall on the other side of Main North Road, we see nothing after that. We drive at 80 mile an hour and get back. So if we're looking at count 2A, I still support it, but or two of them instead of one of them, because once we hit that Girl Guides thing in Harvey Street, that was the end. We drove past Broadview Oval at 90. We drove past because it was pitch black.
Sunset tomorrow is at 8:11, so by that day it'll be 8:20 or something like that. And still be a bit of light after sunset, but we're suggesting start at 5:30 or 6.
All I'm saying is, remember last one, it got dark and we didn't see things. We only saw half of the tour. That was deliberate. You didn't say that. No. So all I'm saying is sort of take that in mind. It's good that if we're going to see things, we pull up at one place and spend 20 minutes because it's very important.
Let's check. When will we be having dinner that night? Because I presume this will go for a couple of hours.
The intention was we'd probably have dinner on the bus or something. They just want to speak about what's happening within their area. It's up to the councillors in terms of commencement time. We were just cognizant of the fact that people work and they may not be able to get here before 6:30. But if you are able to, if we're able to start it at 6 o'clock, fine. We're happy to take advice on that.
I'm still not worried when we're planning it. So what's at the end of it, it's just, and I believe it's just as important than what's at the front of it. But 2 tours I've been on, for those nice rolls, eating on the bus was a good idea. But you go along, and the end, once we left the Girl Guide, we flew around corners to get back here because of the timing.
Yeah.
So if
it
it's
always takes longer than we think.
Yeah.
So is it also okay to start at 6 instead of 6:30? Yeah. Thank you. And
That's the only one I was going to speak about. I'm happy with.
So the bus tour will be useful. Is there any appetite for different sort of tours around the city? So, for example, we're doing the Davenport Terrace Community Reference Group walking tour with Christina, myself, Kate, Pam, sometimes David. Every now and then a resident comes along. By accident, sometimes.
So was I.
I feel that you get a different perspective of the city by walking around the city, and I also feel you get a different perspective by cycling around the city, or pedicabs or whatever it might be. But I just wanted to throw the idea out there that we could consider see a similar sort of tours under different modes of transport, because you get a completely different feel. So it depends on what we're looking at.
I think stuff taken on notice. I think certainly the planning team, the Resi Code, the Residential Development Review on foot, and we can, we're setting up walking tours with community members. So that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, okay. Any other suggested changes to this, Alison?
Just one quick comment or suggestion in relation to council members being able to chair workshop meetings. It's a really good access to, being able to chair meetings from where other councils.
The other councils that have set up specific committees offer an opportunity for that to be chaired by a councillor, but the workshops are must be chaired by the CEO or my delegate. So
is that the new act?
That's underneath the act, so I would need to delegate that authority to somebody else to do. Previously, the directors chaired those meetings. So, but if you were to set up a formal committee, then the opportunity exists for you to actually chair a committee underneath the act.
Okay. All right, we'll take it that there's no more changes, and given we've got, let me just read out before we go back in formal session, there's a suggestion to change 2A to 6 p.m. instead of 6:30, and a suggestion to change item 4 to councillor appointment, councillor information and workshop sessions.
And if you can make that change up in recommendation 1 as well.
No, item 1 has been mentioned as well. Oh, sorry, it's just a title report. Okay. Yeah, so that stays as it is. So only item 4 changes. So I'll take it that nobody wishes to move, we'll take a formal session, sorry. Take it that nobody wishes to move the motion as presented. Does somebody wish to move it with those 2 small changes in there? Councillor Rich, wish to speak to it?
That's been
presented. Councillor Wen, wish to speak to it? Do you have any further debate? If you further debate, always in favour. Against is carried. Okay, good discussion, great feedback, unanimously for the staff. And we'll pick that up, and CEO and I will take carriage of that, hopefully making it useful for everybody. Item 14.3, committee structure and appointments, recommendations on page 27 and 28. There are 2 committees here. It says in there I'm on audit committee, but there's a place for a councillor. And then there's strategic planning and development policies committee. There are 4 positions there. So let's have a show of nominations for item 4, which is the councillor appointment to the audit committee. What are you been nominating for that? Councillor Barnett?
Having spoken and checked councillor, nominate Councillor Rick.
Councillor, would you happy to accept? Yes, are there any further nominations?
And just wanting to clarify something with that about the meeting time of 4:30. I would need that to be changed if possible. I believe that one was meeting.
It will be a survey of suitable meeting times for those who are elected to that panel. Yes, so that is changed. Yeah. So nominating on the proviso that not at 4:30, pretty much.
Correct. Yeah, I can't make it at 4:30. So 5:30 is the earliest. Yeah.
Breakfast taking that on notice, or a breakfast meeting.
Yeah, okay. If you breakfast meeting at 7 a.m, that's fine with me. I don't mind.
No further nominations for that position. All right, I'll move to item 6, which is for the Strategic Planning and Development Policies Committee. Councillor Booch is not here, but he's indicated by email that he's interested in being nominated for that. So I'll do that through the chair. And so Councillor Booch is the first nominee. Are there any other nominees for that role?
I'll nominate
Councillor Barnett, you happy to be considered? Yep, thank you. Any further nominations?
I'll nominate Councillor Marcos.
And Councillor Backer, you wishes to be part of that committee? Thank you. Any further nominations?
No, nominate again.
Yes, sir.
Because I spoke to Councillor Griffin, he was interested also.
Councillor Rick, you happy to be on that committee as well? Nominations. Voting, if there are any further nominations? Is self-nominated, that is someone else nominated?
How many do you need?
Four.
I'll nominate Councillor Nguyen. She's
Can you accept the nomination? Nguyen. Any further nominations? That's been the case. We'll close nominations there. We have a position for the Audit Committee filled by lack of further nominations, so we just need a ballot on the positions for the Strategic Planning and Development Policies Committee with 5 nominees. So the process is very straightforward, just right at the top. Well, if you want to do that, the purpose of this vote, and then please just choose 4 of the candidates. The first 4 past the post will win a position, the 5th will be eliminated. If there's a tie for the 4th and 5th, they'll be decided by drawing a name out of a hat, some other receptacle, and the name withdrawn will be eliminated. Just for clarity.
We better use it as lost. Eliminated means yes.
There's no 4 nails. First 4 past the post.
to use the preferential vote.
That's fine. What I want to do is write down the plot.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, okay. Gotcha. Open this one.
Not preferential, it's just...
Not preferential. So we're going to have just 4
ticks
on our process, and it's very difficult for us to deal with that. So just keep it simple. 4 ticks is fine. I'm sure the manager of governance is just marking the paper for purpose.
Oh, that's all right. Where at?
It's BDDC.
Oh, not numbers, crosses or...
It can be anything, you just have to have 4 ticks or 4 crosses, whatever.
Oh,
Because it'll be empty. It'll be empty box.
I need to play more first.
Don't quite over to C, there isn't one. Oh, yeah.
Branding. Yeah.
Now, members, it'll take a while to count up, so to avoid us making them feel like we're all looking at them. I just think leave the meeting to move to the next item. I'll wait to count. All those in favour of that? Thank you. Just move. Review the code of practice meeting procedure. Meeting procedure, sorry, page 38. Just a quick note, there's some text in red in the document. That's where we've already changed from the standard regulation. So that's not a change proposed for tonight. We resolved that some previous occasion. But for the sake of clarity, it started to highlight the extend. And we're able to change the standards to certain things. So, Councillor Backy, happy to move into this?
No, I just have a question. That's okay, because this confused me because I was trying to refer to it for the other adjourned motion tonight. So does having that red text on page, not the divisions one, adjourned business, does that compromise our flexibility in doing that?
So this
Resolve previously? So,
where were you?
sorry, page 55 and part 19.4, 1, 2 and A.
That was a different page.
Page 50.
It's 58, I think, on this.
Okay.
Look at 55.
Page 55, yeah, 19.4. Correct.
Yeah.
19.4.
Section 15, maybe that's the confusion.
Yeah.
Section 19, adjourned business.
Yes.
And under subsection 4, we've got provisions of this regulation may be varied at the discretion of the council pursuant to regulation 6.
Yeah.
Does that extra red bit make it less flexible? I mean, I'm always a believer of things should be as flexible as possible, depending on the situation, but it just seems to be...
Because it prescribes an outcome.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be happier without it. It's closer to the act.
So just a clarity, item 1B is very prescriptive. The standard is very prescriptive in that if, by way of explanation from the chair, if 8 councillors are here and 6 have spoken to the motion and the 7th puts up the formal motion to adjourn, only one person is deemed not to have spoken. What 1B says is when we resume that item at the next meeting or at the point that we said we wanted to resume it, I can only then hear from the 8th councillor. That's it. And then I have to take the summing up and then the vote. So 1B is very prescriptive, and we thought too restrictive, because usually you're adjourning it to find out something more. And when you find out something more, it kind of changes the background information. And we wanted to be able to free up the debate so everyone could have another go based on the extra information. Hence we changed it. So you're quite right. For part 2, A is prescriptive. It says it will commence at the start again. But former council decided that was better rather than 1B.
But my point is that any of those above, you can vary at the discretion of the council.
This is not randomly on the night.
Why not? Mayor.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I concur with the Mayor that in actual fact, whilst it is somewhat prescriptive, it does provide flexibility because the debate is commenced again. And the problem that you've got, if you don't have that provision, as has been outlined, you could have a situation where a month would go past and you haven't actually recorded what was said by 6 or 7 of the members, and then you start the debate again and you have the view of only one. So the intent was to provide you with some greater flexibility within a framework.
So I may just restrict your question. So are you proposing that if we didn't have that alternative, we could just choose to do that each and every time?
Yes.
Okay. So from my perspective, I'm not a stickler for rules, but I like the rules to be known and transparent ahead of time, because sometimes it's a really tricky topic and people come having read the procedures and understand how to engage in the debate. And if we choose to change the way we debate on the night, I think that makes it a little tricky.
Only because the agenda item we had, I didn't have the before us, and there was some pretty heavy
Okay,
debate on
sure.
the one we had just recently.
Yes.
And it, you know, had I known this, I could have. No, I'm trying
Can I take that as a note that, yes, you're quite right, that the report, sorry, so you hadn't picked up on this, the report should have included the item that we're meant to review.
Yes, exactly. It did, and that's where I was confused. I'm thinking I'm supposed to be closing, and I'm trying to remember what was said before and who had spoken.
That is a very good point.
Yes.
Yeah. There should have been greater clarity around that. That's quite right. So that was a very good question that wasn't a terribly quick answer, I'm afraid. Are there any other questions about this item? If not, I'll seek a mover. Councillor Lowe.
Just a quick question in relation to
Sorry,
that.
Councillor Steele.
So council has previously resolved, and then point 1 and point 2, should it be and or? Because those two are joined together, and either one of those things could happen, or both of them may happen. So the way this is worded, both these things have to happen in order for A to be carried out.
Start with that again. Talking about four.
So council has the wording in red. Council has previously resolved, and there's point 1, if a motion for blah blah blah, and then it says and if a debate is interrupted for want of quorum. So it sounds like both of those conditions need to exist in order for A to be enacted. It should be and or.
Yeah, I think probably should be or. Manager of Governance, speak up that should be and be or. I'm just trying to think, when would you have something that's adjourned and you lost quorum? It's and should be or. No, I'm not sure it should be and or. I think it should just be or. Yeah. Thank you. Micro Nat Lowe. Yes. Any further questions, any shorter bits in the document? I'm taking Councillor, well, who wishes to move it in that very slightly minute form? Councillor Backer, wish to speak to it any further? Yes, yes, we'll just get some words up, Councillor Backer, so your motion reflects that discussion. There'll be more words describing the changes in the change. I'm just putting and or. Thank you. Can you move that way, Councillor Baker? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe, wish to speak to it? Any further debate?
Just wanted to quick question to the administration through the chair. Sorry, yeah, thank you. On 7.3 on page 64, recordings of meetings, just wanted to check, and it probably is mentioned here, if members of the public do come and speak to council, either deputation or answering questions, are they made aware that they're actually recorded as part of that that deputation request?
Yes, they are at the commencement of the Council of Agenda, which we're presuming that read because that's a standard about the agenda right.
I think that's good, yeah.
It's true that for the first year or two, I would point it out to people, but we've done it for so long now. I haven't done it for some time. Perhaps I'm assuming that the cabinet of the room lets them know that. But we often have people coming who are very local, but not always.
Maybe that's something we I don't know what the views. I think it should actually be made aware either in a reply email that they are recorded, because I don't think everybody would be aware of that. So,
I'm just sorry, can I just check that? I think when people reply for deputations, it is a note that goes specifically to them. Sorry,
maybe I missed it.
Just hang on, I'll give you an answer.
I think it's privacy
further.
That isn't included. That.
So the manager of governance is just finding me a little deputation information sheet that goes out to people.
Yeah, if it's on there, that's fine. I just couldn't see it here.
I'm just checking that it's specifically on there.
Yeah, and members of the gallery. Yeah, good point. Councillor DeBaker. Yeah.
We'll take it on notice. It might not be as specific as you're suggesting.
I think it needs to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Do I need to build that into, or do you just take that on? How does that work? I need to build presentation.
I'm happy to take that as, by way of introduction at the meeting, so I'm happy to do that. And in terms of these meeting procedures, where was your reference to it?
7.3, page 64, recordings of meetings. If we can just extend on that potentially, that states the public gallery would be advised. Yeah, that needs to be expanded. I just think that puts us at risk.
64.
Well, it's on page 64 on the iPad here. Item 7.3, recordings of meetings. I just think that item needs 61. Oh, okay. Yeah.
24 on 64 on iPad. 64 on my iPad.
Item 7.3, recordings of meetings. I think we need to expand on that one a bit. And that's both, as Councillor DeBacker stated, to include the public gallery as well, should be made aware, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, so Councillor, I'm not ignoring you. I just...
No, you're thinking I could tell.
That the meeting procedures about how we run the meeting. This talks about the meetings being recorded, or not how what you're talking about is an introduction at the start of the meeting. I think we might need to take that on notice to work through the best way.
That's okay. So introduction at the start of the meeting, and also if people have specifically raised that they want to come and provide a deputation, they should be made aware both at the start of the meeting but before as well, because that could alter a deputation potentially. I don't know.
So, Councillor, we need to stand when you're President Chair. If you're happy for us to take that on notice, but that has some implications beyond this document. That's what I'm worried about is we might trap ourselves by putting something buried away in the wrong place here and be held to account for that. I'd rather we get it in the right place. And if we listen to this change, bring this document back, I'm not sure that it does. But I can certainly change my practice, and the information item that goes to deputies, that needs to be reviewed. That's not this document.
I'm happy to take that, for you to take that on notice and work, yeah.
Yeah. It is on the agenda already, so it's specifically written at the very first line on the agenda, but I'm happy to highlight that.
Highlight that, and also if people have requested to give a deputation, I think they need to be made aware in their preparations. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions or debate on the site? Councillor Harris.
Just a question, because I think I gave someone the wrong information. In that same area, but not about deputation.
Yeah.
So when this little thing here is on, it's on for the whole meeting. If there's confidential item that's turned off,
yes.
My information, I think I might have given wrong, is if we suspend and go into talking, is that still recorded and put on the...
Yes.
Let's do it.
I apologise.
Yes. Yes. So item 7.3 is really clear. Confidential items will not be recorded. So you can interpret everything else that the meeting is recorded between the meeting opening and when I close the meeting. Okay, thank you. Is there any further debate on that item? If there's not, Councillor DeBacker, do you wish to sum up anything?
No, I will not.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against? This is carried unanimously. Thank you. Discussion. And now back to the previous item, item 14.3. For item 6, the ballot result has come through for those to be on the SPPC committee. And just to highlight, tonight's a night for some drama, Councillors Barnett, DeBacker and Nguyen are deemed to be approved as nominees, and there is a tie for Councillors Rip and Councillor Bruce. So, that's the hat.
Bit of Harry Potter sorting hat? Definitely Gryffindor, come on.
I verify that they're different. I'm sure they are. And they are. Okay, thank you. So, hold it up so I can't. Hold it one more time.
One bigger one.
You can't recruit for this one. Just a reminder, wherever I withdraw, you eliminate. Not life, but bang. Councillor Rick, you've been eliminated.
Let's be Slytherin then.
Successful nominee. So that being the case, can I ask for somebody to move the recommendation as it's written with Councillor Rick at item 4 and Councillors Group, Barnett, DeBacker and Nguyen in item 6. Now, Harris, you wish to speak to it? Wish to see it? Scroll down a bit.
No, I'm just reading Councillor Ripsey. I thought it said he lost, and I don't think
That's for the audit.
Or for the audit committee.
Yeah, no worries. I just like people up there. I lost.
Sure, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
There we go.
Councillor Pierce, his name on the minutes. If you wish to speak to it, Councillor Pierce. Any further debate? All those in favour? Against it is carried unanimously. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you at those meetings. Okay, on 14.5, council member allowances and benefits. The recommendation is on page 66. Two recommendations. Somebody happy to move those?
Oh, sorry.
I was asking you to ask a question.
Is it a brief question? Or can you ask it during debate? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Larwood, you speak to it. Should I say Deputy Mayor Larwood? I don't ever speak to this. So it's no, that. Councillor DeBacker, your question.
Look, I just wanted to clarify some points in regards to when I joined the council first time 4 years ago, there were no sitting fees for committees at City of Prospect. Now, just for the benefit of new members, maybe how that came about and is that set in stone? And I know there's been changes to the remuneration and benefits caps and things, but there wasn't, I didn't know if there was much history to that.
Thank you. Yes. As far as I'm aware, Councillor, we've never had fees for committees. This council, dare I say it, was a little on the stingy side for many years. As Councillor Barnett would remember, the Mayor's allowance was set at twice elected members' allowance when I started on council, and there was 0 for Deputy Mayor and 0 for committees. The Remuneration Tribunal increased Council and Mayor's allowance and introduced at 1.25 for Deputy Mayor, but we've always elected not to remunerate committee members, even if there are independent people on that committee. That's how it's been. It doesn't have to be how it is.
It was more just a comment, but I had never really, obviously you read what, you know, other councils do. It was just to clarify the history of why we do or don't. That was all.
Yeah, I'll do that. Speaking to the motion. Do you want to say anything else? Okay, so I'll speak a little bit when me speak to the motions. This is a little bit of a vexed question amongst councils. Councillor Rip might recall, and other councils might recall, that there are some councils that have 8 elected members and magically 8 remunerated committee positions. You might ponder how that pans out, that everybody gets one committee position. And I look at that model and I wonder whether those committees are getting the best people on them or whether they're just looking out for each other. Whilst ours might be a little stingy on one hand, there's no benefit. People choose to be on a committee because they want to be on it. And I kind of think I'm kind of more content with that. But I must admit, my allowance is more than yours, so I'm happy to be on all of them because I think that's what I should at least offer. In speaking to this, I don't see any reason to change. I'm sensitive to it. I live with it dynamic. Elected members want to argue for remuneration for those new positions. That's quite a change. We might need a bit more time to work through what that might be. But just be aware that can lead to an interesting dynamic on council that who gets what. Yeah, I've noticed that also. Does anybody else who's just speaking to this item?
Where's the? Is your boss?
There's no one else wishes to speak on the item. I'll go back to the move. You just start.
No, look, the only thing I'll say that I suppose having been involved in another council would be having committees set up and having councillors the opportunity to chair those committees is good for, I guess, professional development opportunities. So that's, you can look at swings and roundabouts. You can look at it two ways. You can look at it as, well, that means these people are getting paid, and you can look at it that means that the elected or the elected body having an opportunity during their term to actually have that professional development opportunity to actually chair a committee, be responsible for a portfolio and actually learn and develop. So you can look at it both ways. I'm happy with what it is here, but I can see that the benefits to having elected members the opportunity in the future maybe to chair certain committees for their own development.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against, is carried unanimously. Thank you. The workshop topic. See ya.
Should be.
14.6, appointment of council assessment panel member. Similar to before, here item 2, we're after a nomination for the vacant member position. I will take item 2 first, and once we resolve that, then I'll take item 3. Noting in the report, the legislation does not require an elected member to be on the council assessment panel. So if nobody wishes to nominate, we simply move item 1 and move on to the next item on the agenda. And the staff will then advertise and get another independent member. So do we have any nominations for item 2 for the member position on the council assessment panel?
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Sort of a question, sort of a thoughts on a potential conflict of interest. So my wife works for the same company as one of our panel members.
Yes.
And if there was a situation where an item came up that he had to remove himself from because of a conflict of interest, then it could be that I might have to as well, because not that my wife and I talk all the time at home about all sorts of things. And that might be one of the things that we talk about. So she's waiting for it to finish so she can upload it. I just wanted to raise that as just to get the thoughts from the chair or from the director.
Can we ask the director to address that question?
Yeah, through the chair, interesting question. I'm thinking that it likely puts you in a position where you're more likely to declare a conflict potentially than some others, which could risk quorum, given there's only 5 on cap, losing 3 isn't an issue, but if there's 1 out, it does. So I guess, yeah, there are occasions where that planning consultant has had to remove himself. It would be a question for Deputy Mayor whether he would also wish to remove himself. But it would potentially cause that issue.
My advice from the chair is always try and protect the integrity of this decision from somebody's criticism. So in that instance, I'd probably advise you to remove yourself if you were the panel member. I don't know what the role that your wife has, but generally you're involved in a firm that's connected to the item. You remove yourself from availability in sanatoriums. Some of the stuff we do is contentious. The only reason is that a panel meeting is because it's complex, for instance. Otherwise, staff do it under delegation. So I can't give you a definitive answer, but I suspect there's sensitivity around that.
Yeah.
So can I come back to the question? Is there a nomination? Councillor Barnett.
I nominate Councillor Alison de Backer.
Councillor Backer, has to accept the nomination. Councillor Barnett.
I nominate Councillor Pearce.
Councillor Pearce, you have to accept the nomination. Any further nominations? Right, there's been two, or closed off to two, and we need a ballot. Councillor Barnett.
Just recognising that we need a full member and a deputy member, and we have two nominations, so there could be some combination there.
Yes, this way is to resolve a ballot for this position, and then the winner is assured of the position on the panel. The runner-up may choose to be nominated for the deputy position. Yeah. And then I'll ask for other nominations for deputy. So I suspect you're right, Councillor Barnett.
That's a good thing.
And so will be resolved relatively simply.
Thank you. Cheers.
You're on the top, down. DAP.
CAP.
We just have one.
It is fair. Don't say that.
Towards the end of that meeting last night, what's the hot in the restaurant? Wings? Thanks, mate.
Who are the nominees? Who are the nominees for CAP? Who are the nominees for CAP?
Green, back of CAP. It was simply Councillor Back and Robin Pearce. So in the minutes you left it returned. Entry. So if you're going to end again, another two.
Well, we thought the night was dull, so we just wanted to liven it up. So you have, there's another tie. So that comes the classic hat.
Great chicken watching your cat.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, that's great.
No, nice.
Well, you get to vote at all of them.
Yeah. Where's group when you need it? We're an odd number. He's to blame for it. I'm going to make sure I remind you that. Okay, yeah. I verified that there's 2 pieces of paper going in the plastic hat and that they are different to each other. Yep.
We can see through that. We can see through that.
All right. Okay. I'll choose this one to be eliminated from the ballot. Councillor Pearce. So Councillor Backer, one back. So you've got item 2. I now seek nominations for item 3 to be the deputy position. Councillor Barnett.
Councillor Pearce.
Councillor Pearce, happy to accept that. Are there any further nominations for the deputy position? None being the case, Councillor Pearce, you will go to item 3. Somebody happy to move that way? Item 1 as it is, item 2 with Councillor Backer, item 3 with Councillor Pearce. Councillor Harris, will you speak to it?
No, thank you.
Speak to it. Further debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations to you both. Item 14.7.
Right.
So, those who are new, we only do this
At time.
once a year maximum. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, look, 2 things I want to nominate someone, but I do want to raise the question how it's, I think, different now. I can be wrong, that it looks like there's an automatic staff person and one of us elected.
The question?
Well, that's the question because a half question because it's really there.
Yeah, but I haven't got it on the floor, so you can't debate it, so I'll take the question.
Okay, well, the question is, so are we changing then and having one staff person and one elected member?
Well, that's what's in the report, so who wishes to address that?
Yeah, I can.
Why the change?
Again, through the chair, it's the report outlines a number of governance reasons in terms of staff offer a unique perspective also. And some years ago, about 3 now, the terms of reference for EHAR changed, allowing a different board makeup. And we thought we'd take, this being our first real opportunity to take advantage of that, thought we'd look to offer a balance of 2 different perspectives.
I have a follow-up question, and unfortunately I really understood the first part, but my follow-up question is, will we have a problem if an item comes up there and it's a confidential item and then, because you're on that group, you get sworn to the secrecy, and I find that, I can find it easy for us, but I find it a bit difficult that, and I think you were the person on it, yeah, I'd find it difficult that we come back here and got to do it, and you've got to be confidential in cases, oh, what happens, and you say, I can't tell you, or David says, what happened, and it's, that's what I find. I don't find anything else. In fact, quite often to do the work I think is good, but I find if it gets to that confidential stage, the confidential.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd acknowledge that there'd be some unique challenges with that. I think I'm relatively well placed in that I don't vote on items, and if items are being brought to the chamber on paper, they're publicly available information.
I'd like to nominate Christina for the position.
Yes, I've been on it for quite some years, so I think I have some understanding.
Yes. Speech. Saying yes. Another nomination.
Just a question.
Question.
Brief question, yeah. I was speaking to the staff about this, but I'd like some clarity around subsidiaries, please, and conflict of interest, because I got some extra advice I find the advice has sort of been a bit contradictory in the sense of the old council that I served on said if you served on a subsidiary, so an example would be the Adelaide Shores, where we sent a representative, Adelaide Shores body. Those matters then, if they came back to council, we were advised with the subsidiary that then you would have a conflict of interest for those items being brought back to council. At our session the other night, the lady who gave the presentation said that if it's a subsidiary and you've got that built in, it won't be a conflict. Can I just get some advice? If you're not sure, you can take it on notice, but our subsidiaries say the Eastern Adelaide Authority Board. Does that constitute a conflict of interest when those matters, a material conflict of interest when those matters come back and if they're before council?
Thank you. I believe there's an exemption around these specific entities, but I'll just check with somebody somewhere. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is that there is an exemption. We're happy to clarify that via memo to you as soon as we have confirmed that. Certainly the Director of Corporate Services has been working with our legal advisors on this matter, and we will do further clarification.
So this, I presume, CEO, while you've got the floor, that we're talking exemption per specific entity, yes, not subsidiaries in general.
I'll take that on notice too, because I think it is actually one of those areas that, unfortunately, I think the training has provided a bit of confusion in respect to that.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So thank you for the question. I have one nomination for item 2, Councillor Barnett. Any further nominations for item 2 to be the board member 1? There not being any others, Councillor Barnett is. Someone should move when I ask for it at item 2. Item 3, is anybody happy to be nominated to be the deputy to the board member number 1?
Yeah, I'm happy to be deputy. In case you can't make him, happy to.
I'm going to accept that because you nominated yourself. Oh, thank you. Any further nominations for the deputy member? There being none, can I therefore have somebody move item 1 as it is, item 2 setting Councillor Barnett, item 3 setting Councillor Britt, and item 4 as it is. Councillor Harris.
I don't wish to speak. Thank you.
Secretary. When you speak to it. All in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations. Item 14.8, the Eastern Health Authority first budget review. Hopefully a simpler item, members, tonight. I'll be happy to move it in its current form.
Do my first duty as the elected, so just move there. I think it's quite a lot of information there. And this is the sort of information for the benefit of newer members that you get, and also each council delegate receives the information as a delegate from the Eastern Health Authority CEO to provide council with information on a regular basis.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Harris, would you speak to it?
Thank you.
You heard the debate. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against, is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.9, voluntary membership of council members to the Prospect Arts Action Network and Citywide Public Art Roundtable. So at item 2, there are 2 positions available to be appointed as members of the Art Action Network, and there are 2 for the Public Art Roundtable. These are, can I just clarify, Director, I think you can be on both. There's no exclusivity about these, is it? That's correct. Okay, but I don't think anyone is on. I think I was on both, but I think you're not on there to be on both. So just so you're aware, there's no restriction. If you're really, really passionate, you can do. But I'll call first for item 2. Who would like to be nominated?
I nominate Christina. Nominate Christina Barnett.
For the Art Action
Network. Well, to start with number 2.
Say again?
For a start, number 2.
Okay. Arts Action Network, happy Councillor Barnett?
Yes.
Any further nominations?
So nominate Councillor Harris.
Councillor
What happens when you sit on side by side? I accept that nomination.
Do I have any further nominations? Councillor De Backer?
Yes. I'd like to nominate, I don't know if I can use his full term, Deputy Mayor Larwood, or just Councillor Larwood. The role.
Councillor Larwood, happy to accept that nomination?
Yes, ma'am.
Any further nominations? That being the case, I might let's deal with that one first, and we'll move to the public art one second. Printing machine working overtime.
Must do electronic voting sometime. We can do a test if it works.
We asked the commission to do electronic voting, we're not doing it ourselves.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. If you want, then you wouldn't have to wait till next month to get results and have them straight up.
Sorry.
It's not clear in the wording if they're all for the same thing. They're written differently.
For the most part, it was.
So we're voting just for the pan.
Yeah, just the vans. Yeah.
So just be, if you could read all the same.
So there needs to be two, is that
There
right?
needs to be two. Yeah.
Yes, two. Just write two names on there. Let the members look at it.
Yeah, I think we all did. Yeah.
Thank you, members. The next item is called protocol. For those of you who aren't familiar, after this and then a public art one, we can move all 4 items on block, that means all together, unless they're withdrawn. So just for the sake of you...
Sorry, you just lost me there. Hello, lost me there, sorry.
16.1 to 16.4.
I'd like to bring out the strategic plan.
So, yep, thank you. So I'll ask in a moment whether you wish to withdraw those items. Just have a think about that. I will be withdrawing item 16.4 because there's a slightly changed recommendation. Otherwise, they go through that into the debate, just so you're aware. Councillor Harris and Councillor Barnett, thank you. They've been very tight. So, tight result, but Councillor Barnett and Harris for item 2. Can I have nominations now for item 3 for the citywide public art roundtable?
I would nominate Councillor Larwood.
Larwood, you have to accept?
Yes.
Yes, you're getting there. Do you have any other nominations for the public art roundtable?
Councillor Barnett.
Barnett. You accept?
No,
No.
one's enough.
Would you love to? Okay. I will be on the public art one, just for information. I was on the hand for 10 years and have not been on that for about a year or so. The report's not quite accurate, but I am on the public art. So these positions don't have to be filled, by the way. These are not legislated, these are just opportunities. So, any further nominations for the public art? If not, take Councillor Larwood that you are in that first position and there is not a second councillor. And I don't need to be named CEO, I'll just clarify because I'm ex officio on all these things. Thank you. So can have somebody move item 1 as it is, item 2, Councillor Barnett and Councillor Harris, and item 3 with Councillor Larwood. Sure. Brief question.
Just a question. I don't know if I can ask it. The other members of the groups, are they paid positions?
No. Yeah, things have been going for 20 years. The PAM. 20 years, yeah. Thank you. Someone had to move that way.
Of those 3 recommendations?
Yeah. Councillor Ripp, wish to speak to it? So a seconder. Councillor Backer, wish to speak to it? Further debate. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. On the protocol, as suggested, Mr. Dillon to the floor, I'll be on block 2, where we report on 16.1, the Eastern Waste Management Authority item. No. Item 16.2, the strategic plan information report, July to October. Councillor Backer.
Just briefly give a report.
Yeah. Wait for a second. I'll withdraw it. Statement. Item 16.3, the Intelligent Community Forum Awards. You want to withdraw that? Yes, please. Yeah, Larwood, and I've already signalled 16.4, so therefore ask for a mover of item 16.1 on the block. Councillor Richards, there's no speaking to it. Let's move on block to the seconder.
Is that including number 4?
No, just 16.1. Councillor Harris, all those in favour? Against is carried. Thank you. Item 16.2, Councillor Backer just removed and asked you a question during your moving speech.
Yeah. Yes, so we'll move it, and I think, look, it's really good to have a snapshot of all the you know, so we shouldn't be doing anything that doesn't align with our strategic plan. If it's not, you have to scratch your heads and ask why. Alternatively, we need to go back to the strategic plan and amend it. So I'd certainly suggest for new councillors to have a pick through it. And if you see anything that doesn't really align with our strategic plans, ask questions. Look, just on the format of it, there's lots of information. Sometimes, again, quite a visual person, it's quite hard to read. I'd appreciate maybe if some of the costs were tabulated in a separate column associated with the projects. I think that would be a lot easier to read. And often you do tend to get a quite large people in place submission compared to some of the other more seemingly mundane parts of the organisation, but I think they deserve just as much attention. So they should have equal as much space and padding in their part of the report. So all in all, a great report, but I think we still keep our eye on the ball and see if anything in there isn't aligning with our strategic plans, or when we relook at our strategic plans, things that should be in there.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Deputy Mayor, I'll speak to it.
I would like to, I'm not sure where we would do this, but carry out a review of the strategic plan to ensure that it's got quite a few measurable targets and outcomes in it. I think it's great to have the vision and the outline, the framework and the structure that we've got. It was put together a few years ago, and it might be time to review what we have got in there vis-a-vis targets and measurable outcomes. I can't see why it wouldn't have those kind of things in there, and we may be happy with them, but I think it probably warrants a bit of review. So that's all I'd like to say.
Luckily, Councillor Stackhouse will agree with you. You have to do it in 2 years. CEO, just a brief date. Do you have in mind what we use?
Thank you, through the Mayor. We are anticipating that we would start the review mid next year, so that would allow Council to understand what's happening around the place. So take a number of months to ensure everybody's across everything, and then we'd start commencing the review in mid-2019 to have it concluded by the end of that financial year.
Any further debate on this item?
More so a question, and I'm new, so you might be able to help out here. In terms of the strategic plan, are we expecting any impact to affect our strategic plan and goals and targets in terms of the China sword issue going on at the moment? And I'll leave that there because I'd like to learn, because obviously each council is impacted differently, and some aren't impacted at all based on their contracts and what they do. So are we likely to have an impact for our strategic plan with the China sword situation going at the moment?
Thank you for the question through the Mayor. There has been financial impact on the organisation from the China sword scenario that has been addressed in the current annual business plan. Of course, there's an ongoing cost in relation to it. The service provider we use, which is East Waste, is currently out to tender in terms of its philosophical collections, and some good prices are coming in. It seems as if the high prices that were quoted when China sword was first announced have come down, so there's been a levelling off in the marketplace in relation to that cost. We'll be presenting that information back to you once that tender process has been undertaken, for you to determine whether you want to proceed with using East Waste or not. And interestingly, this week I received some information from East Waste in relation to a further charge from the government that they want to pass on to local government, which is completely a gouging of local government. So there's been some savings required in the EPA, and the EPA are now going to seek an increase in the gate fee by another 3% on top of the 15% that they provided this year for us in order to gain that money back. So we will certainly be making strong representation to Mr Spears in relation to that, that it's inappropriate for the state to pass on that sort of cost.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
That's fine.
Any further debate on this item? Just before we move back to the mover, I do, as the mover has suggested, encourage new councillors, all councillors, to read this report. It's the best summary of activity in the last quarter, and it's quite comprehensive. It doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover mowing lawns, for instance, but it does cover all the aspects of council that are not standard operational items. And you may be impressed with progress, and you may not be. The report is there for you to both affirm and to challenge. It's honest, reporting. So please, every time it comes up, don't think because it's at the back end of the agenda and it just is there for noting that it's not important. It's a very good snapshot. Now, mover, Councillor Backer, if you wish to sum up.
No, thank you.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 16.3, the Intelligent Community Forum Award. Councillor Miller, would you wish to move it?
Yes, please.
Speak to it.
We'd like to start off by once again congratulating the team that worked on the submission. For the, I'd like to suggest that we hold a workshop item in the not too distant future to bring the new auditing members up to speed with what the ICF is all about and how we've integrated the indicators is one of the things that we look to when we're putting forward a motion. You'll see in the papers it'll talk about is it meeting intelligent community indicators or objectives where possible. The good thing about this award and the way we've approached it is we haven't gone out and said let's go out and try to win this award and work out what we need to do to win it. We're doing the things that we're doing and we're leading the sector in a lot of areas, and as a result we've been rewarded by this recognition. So I think that's exactly the right approach that we should be taking. I was pleased to see that in this round we've taken this out to the community as well. We've incorporated schools in the program and interactions with schools, which is one of the key aspects of the ICF is the triple helix, which is councils and education and business working together to create uplift for everybody. So I'm really pleased to see that. What I'd like to look forward to in the future is continuing to push ourselves and maybe look at introducing some targets which are measurable around the work we're doing and how we're achieving and succeeding, and potentially in the future aspire to be a top 7 as well. But once again, to the team who put together the submission, congratulations on a job well done. I think we've 6 out of the last 7 years.
6 out of the last 8
years, I believe. Adelaide City Council are crowing about 2, and we've got 6. So I think that's an excellent validation of what we're doing here in Prospect.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Diane, would you speak to it?
Yes, and I concur with Councillor Larwood, who is, I believe, still our representative on the international board. Correct. And yeah, I think again, it's true that I think we just sort of get out there and go and do it. And I think it's part of the aspect that being a small council in terms of population and other indicators, but we can be sort of nimble and we can get out there and do these things. But we're doing them because not because we go out thinking, oh, well, let's go for this award. That is a wonderful side benefit. We're actually doing it there to benefit our community and to benefit our business people and our home business people. And as indicated, our schools are involved, and I think we most probably, we look to expanding that. I think in the future, not just on Prospect Road, but when we get things happening soon, I hope, on Main North Road. Yeah, so I'm happy to.
Further debate? That's the debate.
Again, congratulations on all the efforts that we've gone to. One thing that I would like to highlight is that this area, to many businesses and residents, can seem a bit abstract. So what does it mean and how can I be part of it? So I think certainly around our communication and the buy-in. So, I mean, I understand where it's coming from, but a lot of this has actually to do with best practice. So it's looking at best practice around the world, and it's not digital by default, it's intelligent by default. And I think we can get our arts community on board. I think we can get maker spaces on board. We can have a festival of ideas. I think there's many more ways that people can buy into this, amazing space that we're in, and make it less abstract. So maybe that's just some feedback for the communications team of how we can sort of actually capitalise and leverage on this award.
Thank you. Any further debate?
I just wanted to obviously congratulate the administration on achieving this, and also for the previous elected members that weren't successful. Congratulations for their involvement in the previous council, being Councillor Evans, Councillor Lee and Councillor Standen for their part in achieving this result. It's a great result for our community. Well done.
Thank you. And unique bar one other council in the country. That's my contribution. Well done. Back to Councillor Larwood, do you wish to sum up?
I mentioned the triple helix before, and I'm not making this up. There's such a thing as the quadruple helix, which talks about open innovation, research and development, and what I think one of the things that we'd like to do more in the future, which we've already started doing, is to look to engage as much as possible with that sector. That's where things are happening. The lunch that we were lucky enough to go to yesterday talked about leveraging IP, and that being a massive economic driver for our whole state, and in particular we're well positioned through our location, the things we've been doing around this space and all the other things that we do to position ourselves as a key player. It might seem like a lofty goal for little old Prospect with a small number of residents to be a key player in this space, but I think if we have the desire and we have the planning around that, we can do that, and that's the sort of thing that gives really strong, tangible outcomes that Councillor De Backer was referring to. How we can sell this is by demonstrating what it actually means in real terms. So that's one of the areas I'd like us to continue to focus on in the future.
That concludes the debate. Otherwise, the vote. Yes, is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 16.4, the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre. It's just a slight revision to the recommendations, which has got an extra item, part 2. So I'm happy to move it as it's on the screen.
Number 1's the same, is it?
Number 1 is unchanged.
Yeah, continue to be.
That's a question.
Yes, that's
And I asked this when last term. The project executive group, is that able to be attended by councillors that want to view the proceedings? So for example, the project executive group, I perceived it as a committee, but is it councillors that are interested able to attend or to listen to the guys?
Yes, unchanged in format. Yeah, no change in format or status. That's not to.
And so there will be no councillors will be notified of the dates. Will the councillors, elected members, be notified when the meetings will be on?
Good question. There are a couple of slip-ups before. Director, if we close that up.
Yeah, look, certainly through the chair, about 12 months ago, we sent out invites to all other non-members of PEG, like councillors, and we'll do the same for meetings going forward. We just we're waiting after the caretaker period to reset meetings going forward to the life of the project.
Sorry, there needs to be some protocol because it's as required and a non-monthly scheduled meeting is called. Can you assure us that all the members will be invited to those other ad hoc meetings?
Through the chair, my intention is to adopt a similar approach to what we've done in the previous 12 months, which is essentially invite all to all meetings, assuming that there'll be a dozen, or in the past 24, assuming there'll be a dozen, and if there's a cancellation, we'll advise all.
So just for clarity, it says as required there may be additional meetings. So it's the additional ones that sometimes slip through that people haven't invited.
Sure, I'm not aware of any that actually happened in the last 12 months, but we'll certainly.
There were some changes that happened, so just be aware, it's now 12 months in advance. That's timeless as a change. Some of the changes, some of the additions will get notified. So that's an actual question I understand. Okay. Probably have to move it as it's on the screen. Councillor Rick. Thank you. You should speak to it. Seconder, Councillor Harris, you should speak to it.
Thank you.
Any further debate? Councillor Backer.
Yeah, I was just looking on page 194 for the changes to the council chambers. I'm assuming that's on the right, that's the configuration that we're going to have.
The tables.
And that'll of course have space for camera. And just regarding the below the line item, town hall, I'm just confused as if it's going to be included or it's not included.
So the town hall air conditioning?
Yeah.
Through the chair, we'll be looking to include that through the next budget review. So there's a little bit of uncertainty as to whether or not it will be affordable, but that's what we're looking at over there.
So again, my sentiment all along is it shouldn't be seen this old building doesn't get as much attention as the new building. It's supposed to be integrated, so it's all part of this one. So I think there should be, if there's budget cuts, it should be across the whole build, not just target the town hall. So.
Just from the chair, the reported page refers to the table for council indicates that it's being explored, that the decision is not made yet. I'm expecting that sort of thing will go ahead. In my viewing of that, that looks a little tight, particularly for those on the edge of the round bit where it transitions onto the straight bit. And I'd just like that to be clarified. We've had a very generous council table for some years, and I wouldn't want us to transition to something that's too tight. We haven't chosen our chairs yet, so I'm viewing this the way it's written is still needing work and still needing a decision somewhere. The decision has not yet been made. Is that correct with that?
Through the chair, time is getting tight, but final decision can be made through PEG.
Or an ad hoc meeting. This is important because it's such expensive, and I don't want to do it twice. Just to respond to the air conditioning light in the town hall, it's not a matter of making cuts as I read it. We just haven't had enough money to do much in this space. We want to justify spending more as we borrow more, paying more interest. That's up to the council. If the council wants to spend $1 million, then suggest there's no hint of a cut there. To replace this air conditioning would be another 175,000, roughly, 135, sorry. And I think that decision at some stage needs to be brought to the council at a time when it's appropriate to do so, and for us to make a decision. So just to there's no hint of a cut in the month, this or that. It was never in the budget. Thank you. Any further debate on this item? No. Back to Councillor Ripp, to sum up.
So thanks.
Concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. Unanimously. Thank you. Council Diary, we have a few items there. Blues Breakers are here in the Town Hall, Friday the 7th. Lions Carrollton Park is up at the park, Friday the 7th, hopefully the weather's good. And there's an exhibition opening, the 20th Community Show, always a great show. Those who've never been to the gallery, that's a great exhibition to start with, where we invite anyone from the community to put up anything they consider art. Either on the wall or on a stand or a pedestal or something. And really, it's very, very inclusive. There's no judgment at all, there's no winner. You just get a chance to exhibit in a gallery. And I know that Councillor Baines sent through, there's a flag event coming up. There's a sale on the...
That's the Prospect Local Environment Group Christmas Eco Market, held on Saturday the 8th of December, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There'll be indoors in the Prospect RSL Hall, and there'll be some outdoor marquees in the adjacent Prospect Memorial Gardens.
Our next meeting is on the 18th, is that right? Maybe that's why every great thing in Prospect is compressed into Friday the 7th, Saturday the 8th, and Sunday the 9th of December. Very unusual. Thank you. General business of an urgent nature. Is there anything of an urgent nature? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, keeping in mind the thing that's underneath it, no confidential items. I wonder, as soon as possible, is there a stage that, particularly we have 3 new people, be able to bring up confidential items that we have. I've got one that I talked to someone about the other day inside here, about people and conditions, and I'd like to actually see a report, what's the outcome of that one, particularly because it was a confidential one, and in that same breath of confidential items, particularly with the new people, do they know what we got and come? And I don't know how to say which particular one I want to talk about. Well, I had 2, but one's clear in my head, but the other one's like a medical type setup. That
right. I'm unaware of what you're raising, but clearly there's a procedural matter there, and perhaps you best come to me or the CEO just to work through what your subject matter is, and then we can work out procedure what's the best way to do that. More generically, though, CEO, a briefing for the new members of what's already held in confidence. There's a list, some of it goes back years.
We usually do it once a year.
We review it every year. When's the next review coming up? Just roughly. Director?
Well, the chair, we recently had a report. I'm not quite sure if it's September, just prior to September Council or August Council. Yes, fairly recent.
So perhaps it might be worth it, the new members wish to see what's held in confidence, then contact the director. We go through that list. Otherwise, it will come to us in next August, September.
And I don't want to wait till that to look into the other one.
Yes, they can meet and get information. Anything else or anything of an urgent nature? Being the case, move on to the next item, which is confidential items that are nil. and I'll close the meeting at 10 o'clock.